Pizza guys slash girls, does your shop have a no delivery list? What houses are on it, and why? I was delivering for Godfathers in Memphis in 1988. We had no delivery houses as well as areas. We had one area smack dab in the middle of our normal delivery zone that was blocked out. It was a low-income apartment complex. We got a new manager. He was eager to up his numbers, so quickly changed that area to being a legit delivery area. The first time he handed me an order for that complex, I explained that it was a really shitty complex, and we didn't go there for a reason. He accused me of being racist, because I didn't want to deliver to the complex. Complex was all black, I was white, manager was black, and said just to deliver it and quit complaining. Okay, man. So I drive it out there, and walk upstairs to the apartment door. I knock. No answer. I look a bit closer, and it is obviously a vacant apartment. So I head back to my car, and I'm sorting my money bag and next order, when I glance up in the rearview mirror. I see 3 bad looking dudes crossing the parking lot heading right for my car. I notice one of them is carrying a rifle. Holy shit. I cranked up my shitty VW Rabbit, threw it in reverse, and hauled ass out of the lot. I get back to the shop and the new manager accused me of making it all up, and said he didn't think I had even attempted to deliver it. He says to go back out there. I say no faking way, dude. He insists, so I insist he comes with me. He agrees. We drive back out there. He carries the pizza up the stairs, realizes that it is a vacant apartment, and quickly gets back in the car. Sorry dude. You were right. It was a setup. We got back to the shop and he marked the whole area off limits again. Edit. Hey guys. I'm getting a couple questions about race/racism. I only mentioned it because my manager said I was too scared to deliver to a black part of town because I was white and that I would have no problem with going to the poor white parts of town. It wasn't true. He was not some black racist. I wasn't some white racist. He wasn't a horrible asshole. Anyway, I was pissed so quit to go work for Garibaldi's in Midtown a month later. Better food and better tips. Cheers. Not delivery, but pizza. A couple years back, right after I graduated high school, I was managing a Little Caesars pizza. It is hell. If you were wondering, this one lady would call with this really specific order. I think it was light sauce, double the cheese, and cooked a little longer. One night I had a new girl working register, and she got the phone and took the lady's order. She didn't take a name, as we are carry out only. We didn't get a ton of call-ins. So about an hour goes by and the girl calls me to the front to talk to a customer. As soon as I came around the corner, this lady just starts screaming at me. "Oh, I'll always mess up my motherfucking pizza. It's a faking pizza, it ain't that hard." I tried to calm the lady down and explained to her someone new took her order and it was an honest mistake. Offered to comp it and make her a new pizza. She was still irate and kept yelling that she was going to get me, my crew, and my GM fired. I would have liked that. Fuck Little Caesars. So I eventually called my GM because this bitch would straight up not leave. He asked to speak to her. She talked to him, and then all of a sudden, after about 30 seconds, she screams, "Oh, you think this is funny, motherfucker?" My GM was laughing at her because she evidently wanted free pizza for a month for her troubles. I then had to call the faking district manager Aka 2 steps below, the owner of 47 stores, to talk to this bitch. She cussed him out too, and still was in the lobby screaming at me. Sometime during all this, her son, who looked around my age at the time, 19, came in the store and was standing with her. Now my crew had this dude named Terry, huge as black dude, who you couldn't see unless you were in the back because he was on oven duty that night. This woman's son decides it's time to escalate this to a physical confrontation because I'm even laughing at her at this point. He opens the door to the back, and we always joked if someone did they were going to get faked up. Well, it turned out not to be a joke. Terry whipped this dude's ass to the y=mx plus b degree. Dude got like 2 good hits on Terry, but Terry just faking dropped this dude in the matter of about 10 seconds with a flurry of shit that made me think to myself, Terry should be my manager. Damn. To conclude, the son got a ticket for trespassing in addition to his beat. The lady got banned from our store, and I got a story that I will truly never forget of how people will flip out about pizza. Edit. Wrote quickly. Grandma. I know. Also, no, it was not Terry Crews. He did not dance. He did not go on to have a great career in acting. I quit before him, so I have no idea where he ended up. I used to deliver pizza in the Santa Ynez Valley, California, or those of you who don't know, that's where Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch is located. This was years before he passed away. One day we got an order for 20 pizzas from an address out on Figueroa Mountain Road. That's pretty far out in the Boreas, but it was a good order, so we were clearly going to deliver to them. The note we got with the delivery was to check in at the guardhouse, and they would let us through the front gates. Curious. There's only one guardhouse I knew of on that road. It was my turn for delivery, and I was pretty excited. That should be a pretty good tip point, so I took the pizzas to Michael Jackson's ranch. The guards let me through the first gate. I drove about a mile to the second gate, which happened to be the iconic Neverland Ranch Golden Gates with the naked cherubs on it. The gate opened automatically. I drove for another quarter mile or so and got to a set of huge parking lots. I took the pizzas to a woman with a headset, and she told me to take them to the main house where Michael lived. I drove up to the house, rang the doorbell, and Michael Jackson answered the door. Naked. Okay. That last part didn't happen. Turns out Michael was having a huge celebrity party for someone or other. The pizzas were for the crew setting up the party. They were very thankful and tipped me $100. I just wanted to tell that story. It was pretty awesome. This guy wasn't banned, but I had to mention this to people who would understand. I delivered pizza for Pizza Sluched for almost a year, and most houses were fine. Some didn't tip, some did. Some were rude, some weren't. However, there was always one place I loathed delivering food to. I get an order to take a couple pizzas and whatnot to this address I'd never delivered to a couple months in. I drive there, but can't find the street sign in the phone's GPS. It's only so much help in the rural areas, is telling me to take a turn into a forested area with no discernible roadway. I'm driving around for 15 to 20 minutes trying to find the right road to turn down and repeatedly calling this customer. I finally stop where it's telling me to turn and get out and walk to the side of the road with a flashlight and see the narrowest dirt road winding into some trees. I assume this is it and pull in, and after a minute or so of slowly driving with the high beams on, I pull up to two identical trailers in the middle of the woods. One on the right and one on the left. There are no numbers, and this guy is still not picking up. There are no lights on in either house, and, eventually, I decide I'm not ready to die and decide to take the pizza back and say they never answered. I lean into my car to grab my phone to call HQ, and when I stand back up, this dude is standing on the other side of my car, staring at me. He didn't make a single sound walking up to my car. He looks like Vince Neil if he were a vampire. Dirty long nails, heavy set mouth breather. Just plops wrinkled cash onto the roof of my car, walks around and gently takes the pizzas from my hands and walks off into the darkness. He didn't even head to one of the houses. $5 tip, though. TLDR, get sorta lost delivering pizza in backcountry. Vampire Vince Neil takes food and disappears. This'll get buried, but this I have to share. Pizza delivered when I was 19, and we had an exceptionally large delivery area. We had, however, an entire section of our city blacked out on our delivery map with a black marker. If someone called from that area, our computer would give us an alert stating we cannot deliver there. Upon asking, it was because we had many delivery drivers robbed/attacked in that area over the years. Understandable, as I knew that section of town was rather unpleasant. It is worth noting that that area of town is also heavily populated by African Americans. You'll see why this is pointed out in a moment. We had a new manager that day, who we shall refer to as Asshole. He gave beer to underage drivers and staff, huffed in the office, general douchebag. While I was cutting up some pizza to deliver later, Asshole takes an order. This is what I hear from his side of the conversation. Asshole, welcome to pizza. What do you want? Asshole, address. Asshole, oh, we don't deliver to that area. It's the black area. Me, bewildered stare. The woman on the other end of the phone was screaming so loud at him that he held the phone away from his ear, and I learned a few new word combinations that day. He hung up on the woman and thought that was the end of it. Nope. Woman came in later. Indeed, she was African American, toting her child with her. From the looks of it, the boy was 5. She was screaming, before she even fully entered the shop, about racism and how she should have a free pizza for the harassment point. I ducked out to deliver a pizza, leaving us whole entirely alone in the shop to deal with her. By the time I came back, woman was gone, and there was a sticky note on the giant delivery map on our wall above the blacked out area. From here on out, the blackout zone shall be referred to as a no delivery zone apostrophe. That was probably the only proper act of management I'd ever seen from him. He was fired soon after people saw him hand myself and another underage driver beer. We didn't drink them on the cameras. Story #9. The origin story of the blacklist. Most of y'all have enjoyed my deliver stories, and it's been mentioned a few times in comments that the store I worked in had a running blacklist of houses that we either did not deliver to or were shifted to the bottom of the priority list. Point about 3 months into my first stint as a driver for a national pizza chain, I started to notice a pattern of regular customers who did not tip. We are not talking tiny tips or being picky that I wasn't getting, that I thought I deserved as a driver. I'm talking flat out exact change and no tip. I even got berated once for not having change to give back the customer his 32 cents. Seriously. Anyway, I was one of 2 full-time drivers. We split shifts on all 7 days. There were also 2 or 3 other part-timers that helped on weekends or picked up midweek shifts when needed. On a particularly slow midweek shift, we started talking about the whole exact change / no tip thing. We compared stories and even addresses. We realized that this was a habitual issue, not just something unique to my own experience. Point around this time we were upgrading to a new order management and dispatch system. While setting things up, we noticed we could customize the order taking screen. There was one line item for delivery notes that was public, in other words it would show up on the printed receipt, and another that was private, you could see it in the GUI, but that line would not print out on an order receipt. Realizing this, we both exchanged knowing looks and began referring to delivery note #2 as the blacklist line. Once the new system went live, we started keeping track of things like which customers were great tippers and super nice, high priority customers, and which customers were assholes, impolite / rude, and or were exact change / no tip types, low priority customers. After about 3 months we had a pretty smooth system going. If a blacklisted customer ordered, I would refuse to take it and leave it for one of the drivers with less seniority. If they got a good tip, they would make a note on line 2. I guess I should explain that it wasn't like once a customer was blacklisted that was it. It wasn't a once and done thing. We kept updating the entries, both good and bad, on a regular basis. Anyway, there was one particular customer I and the rest of the drivers had finally gotten to the point of refusing to deliver to them, period, under any circumstances. I deleted their address from the system and made a note in that said they were habitually rude, did not tip, were sometimes not home when they ordered delivery, and often complained for no reason whatsoever, just so they could get free pizza. Like saying the cheese was stuck to the top of the box when I checked before getting out of the car, or the pizza was late and cold. Stupid petty things that were pretty much bullshit attempts at free pizza. The manager was already tired of this customer sheet, but still had to abide by the whole customer is always right sheet. So one night this whole customer calls in, and the poor girl taking orders didn't know what hit her. She says that we, as a store, are unable to deliver to them. It wasn't uncommon for people outside our delivery zone to try and call in an order on a busy night. So we noted those customers in the system too. Well, as whole customer goes off on her, she starts crying and hands the phone to the manager. He gets the customer's story and then tells the customer he will call them right back. I come in from an order and get cornered by the manager. I could tell he was pissed, but he gave me a chance to explain the situation. A few minutes later the other full-timer comes in and confirms the story as well as why we made the decision to not deliver to his whole customer anymore. Manager calls his whole customer and flat out tells him out it is. A heated pseudo-argument ensues, and the manager ends by saying, our delivery service is just that, a service. It is customary to tip delivery drivers because they are using their own vehicles and paying for the gas out of their own pockets. If you don't want to tip a delivery driver, then don't order delivery. Thank you and goodbye. He then slams down the receiver, looks at me, and just mutters what an asshole under his breath. From then on, the blacklist became an accepted thing, and during a North Store staff meeting the following week, the system was explained so that everyone else who worked there, who were all expected to take orders over the phone, understood what delivery line #2 meant. A few months later, I ended up leaving the store on good terms and went to school out of town. After finishing school and moving back home, I decided to pick up delivering again part-time while I continued on in grad school, this time in town. A total of 4 years had passed between my first stint as a driver, back in 1999, to my second stint, in 2003. On my first day back as a driver, I noticed the blacklist was still going strong. Needless to say, I was pleased. TLDR, a fellow driver and I at a national pizza chain instituted a blacklist of customers that were habitual problems and or the exact change/no tip type. Manager found out about the list after dealing with the king of all assholes on our blacklist, and not only endorsed the list, but also had us explain the list to the rest of the store. Only story I have is as follows. First delivery of the day, maybe 11:15 am. A guy calls and orders a sub, small pizza and 20 wings, but says he wants the sub delivered to his house and the pizza/wings delivered to another house. Claims that he would do it, but he is disabled. I go to his house and drop off the sub. On my way to the second location, I guess he called the pizzeria and there was some confusion, and that the wings and sub were supposed to be dropped off at his place, not just the sub. The pizzeria calls me and informs me of this, so I tell them I'm almost at the second location and that I'd go back after I drop the pizza off. I get to the second location and a man answers the door. He seems very confused, so I tell him it from a gentleman on Lake Street. He then asks some questions and informs me that his daughter has a restraining order against this guy and that he's mentally unstable and dangerous. I get back in my car to go back and drop off the wings, and as I pull into the driveway, the man is standing outside of his house with his sub in hand. I take the wings out of the bag, and once he realizes that I didn't take them to the second location, there was some confusion and apparently I was supposed to take them to the second location and he wanted to order new wings for himself. He lost his mind. I mean, he went insane, threw the sub at me, got in my face telling me that I faked everything up with the girl he loves, and threatened to stab me and pushing me around. After a while I was able to get in my car and speed off, but it was scary as shit. Guy sure was unstable. He's banned. We have this lady that always has an issue. My pizza wasn't as dark as it could have been. I didn't get the right sauce. Bullshit. Beach. I saw him pack the right faking sauce. I didn't get the right order. Possible. It's happened before. I didn't get the right drink. I want a free pizza next time I come in. It's mostly trivial, but when we get there most of the time everything is the exact way it should be. Sometimes we fuck up and send orders to the wrong houses, but that's on busy nights. She always called in on weekdays, that's always what she starts with. She was so irate one day that I had to run her 2 sides of faking ranch. Yeah, she didn't have her side, and our store policy is that if we forget it, we'll run it right back with a free drink on us. We don't mind. It's a way to keep the customer happy. Well, she wanted a free drink and a free pizza, which we didn't want to give her because she's had enough free shit from us, but somehow we talked her down to a bread point. Keep in mind, I make the food, I don't deliver. So to take me away from my job to cater to you means either we are busy or you pissed the driver off. Anyway, food comes out, I leave. As I leave, she calls to tell us that she's pissed that it took so long and to forget it. I didn't know this, and she lived not a half mile down the road. So I get to her house, and what do I get? An earful of bullshit. And I quote, "Are you a faking retard? I cancelled this 2 minutes ago. UHG, you idiots can't do anything right, can you?" She then proceeded to make retard noises to taunt me before ripping the bread out of my hand and trying to throw it at me. I ducked and it went splat against her windshield and faked up her car. I went back, told my boss what happened, and he got livid. I mean faking. Pissed mad. He called her and ripped her a new asshole like nothing I've ever seen. When he was done, he said these retards are going to make sure you never get served here again. Never talk to my employees like that, beach. Slammed the phone down, put the ban hammer on her in the system, gave me the drink she was supposed to have for my troubles, and gave me the night off. Point edit. Quick edits for clarity. I've been a delivery boy for several pizza places over the past few years. Usually the houses that end up on the do not deliver list are houses that have repeated problems or are known non-tippers. One house in particular was near the edge of our delivery range, had a very specific order, so we always knew it was them, and most times they would end up complaining and demand a refund or a new pizza entirely. The owner of the pizzeria had been in the industry his whole life, so he was very aware of people like this. After the first few times of refunding or remaking, the owner would pay special attention to these orders. He would make the order himself and give them to his most experienced drivers, explaining to them the situation, so the driver knew to be extra careful with the pizza. After a perfect pizza and a perfect delivery, when the call inevitably came in for a refund, the owner basically told them he personally made their order perfectly and trusted it with his best driver, so he knew they were full of it. He basically told them to fuck off and never call back. Here's how he knew they were definitely full of it. They would call from a block number to try and order, so obviously they still wanted the food from this particular place, so they must like it. When they gave their address and the owner realized who it was, he told them to once again never call back, and that his restaurant would never serve people like them who were just trying to get a free pizza. Known non-tippers also make the list if the owner cares at all about their drivers. All owners I've worked for have cared about their drivers. I deliver pizza in court and went to a house last month. Before I left, my boss and the other drivers were like, good luck with that one, she's out of her mind. Not thinking much of it, I was like, yeah whatever, it'll charm her. So she orders 2 large pizzas and the total is like $49 or something. It was a BBQ pork and a white clam, 2 of our special pies, and a little more money. So naturally I was like, cool, should be a decent tip and I'll figure out how to deal with her when I get there. I arrive and knock on the door. She comes out stumbling and clearly on Xanax and alcohol. She hands me a 20 and goes back and starts eating the clam pizza and ignores me. I was like, hello, you owe me another $29 please. I said, if you don't have cash you're able to call the store. She came back out after shuffling around for a while with $4. I was like, take your $24 back. If you don't have the money, I'm going to call my boss. I end up calling the boss, and he is like, I knew she would pull some shit like this. So long story short, they called the cops to her house. They got out and were like, we've been here before we actually took her children away. I was like, damn, that's crazy. They're knocking on the door for like 20 minutes and said we're not going to be able to kick the door down over pizza. I was like, that's chill, I just wanted my money. So I get back to the store and the boss is on the phone with her and she keeps saying, wow, you called the cops, wow like a psycho. So she's on the never deliver list. Pretty boring, but that's all I got. Oh man, I've got a great one of these. Back in the 90s I worked as a pizza driver in Seattle for a gourmet pizza place. Pagliacci, if anyone's keeping score. Anyhow, our delivery area for my store was downtown, among a few other neighborhoods. It was fun. Good money, short hours, and we knew every side street and alley in Seattle. We had some good times. There was this one customer that stood out among the crowd as the worst ever. Eventually, we drivers got him banned from receiving delivery. It was just too much. We couldn't stand to go there anymore. I should explain that our area had everything from millionaire high rollers who always tipped like shit, go figure, to working class stiffs, best tippers ever, to crack hoes, pimps, and low income rent controlled buildings with people so poor that they had no faking business ordering our expensive pizza. And man, the shit we saw. We delivered to strip clubs, penthouse coke parties, no-tell motel rooms, upper middle class homes, born studios, conventions, swanky condos, internet startups, and everything in between. Our store got robbed at gunpoint, once had an axe-wielding man fighting a machete-wielding man, drunkards and homeless and all kinds of other shit. I once ejected a pimp who chased his hoe into our store. We let her stay and be safe after I threw the pimp out. Anyhow, back to our ban. As you might guess, it was very unusual for our store to just ban someone. But this guy, shudder, let's call him Bannock, mainly because that was his name. Fact pseudonyms. Bannock was a creature unlike any other. He tipped okay, never gave anyone a problem, never complained. Seems like a model customer. Yeah, the legend of Bannock grew slowly. I heard a few rumors about a really weird creepy situation that a couple of drivers had, but no specifics. Few weeks later, my best friend who also worked at this store with me said, holy shit, I've just seen the Bannock, as he got back from a delivery. What's up with that? I asked. He visibly shuddered and said, I almost threw up. I think I barred in my own mouth a little. Oh, the smell. Then we went about our lives, busy as usual. My friend would remark upon the smell from time to time, but that was it. According to him, the apartment was dark, and you couldn't see anything on there. Just a terrible smell. Yet he was creeped out. I didn't actually think much of it. My friend had a notoriously sensitive sense of smell. Later that month, I got a Bannock delivery. It changed what I knew about humanity. The apartment building was centrally located in downtown Seattle. Even back in the 90s, this meant that it was either rent controlled or expensive. This building wasn't rent controlled. In fact, I think it was a condo. It had security, nice hallways, nice facilities. There's no way it was cheap to live here. I had my Bannock pizza in hand, ready to do battle with reality. I had been forewarned. Somehow, even though I was a regular driver, I was the last to get a Bannock delivery. The legend had grown, and already there were a couple of drivers who refused to deliver to him. I rang in, no problem. Elevator normal, walked down the clean modern hallway until I got to the proper door, turned to knock, and froze, hand in the air, struggling to process what I'm seeing. The door, painted a commercial white, was smudged with raised bits of stuff that looked black. The doorknob was crusted with black icky gunk, mold, budgers, both, fesses. On closer inspection, the doorway and door are smeared with the same substance, and I realize with some horror that it's everywhere. The door isn't white anymore at all, neither is the door jamb. They just look white in comparison to the dark smears of encrusted material around the doorknob and places on the door, where grubby hands obviously touched it regularly. As I look more, I can pick out handprints, fingerprints, thumbnail scrapes. I can clearly see where the door is touched regularly, and how. It's fascinating, but unsettling. It just looks wrong. Is it blood? Is it crap? What the fuck? I haven't knocked yet. Already, I feel oddly disconnected from reality. Normalcy is one pace away, but I feel lost. I pick a place on the door that is less filthy than the surrounding area and I knock, using the back of one knuckle. I resist the urge to wipe my hand on my pants. I hear shuffling inside as someone gets closer to the door. An odd sound like Velcro. As the noise gets closer, I glance down and notice for the first time that the carpet is discolored a little in the hallway, starting at the door. I'm standing in part of it. As the doorknob begins to turn, I see the carpet flex and hear another squelch sound as it does so. Good lord, that Velcro sound was him walking. The doorway cracked open. Darkness beyond. Utterly black. He had to have the windows completely covered and no light on at all. I dimly see a face and the outline of a head. Pizza, I say, because that's what one says. I regret it immediately because of the involuntary intake of breath afterward. The smell is amazing, astonishing, like being hit in the face with a rotten corpse. It smells like fesses and mold and death and the wrong kinds of life all at once. Unwise, but very curious, I took a strong deliberate whiff. I felt my stomach literally cramp as I struggled not to vomit. I never would have thought this possible. I've worked in feedlots, slaughterhouses and pig farms. I'm as tough as guys get. I've ridden rodeo bulls, birthed calves and horses, and done every kind of sheet work that middle America could dream up. And yet, I was not prepared for Bannock. Run. My brainstem screams at me. I struggle to remain in place. I wash out all the air in my lungs and lean away to get a fresh breath. It almost doesn't work. I stand my ground. Grudgingly, Bannock slides open his door. Time has dilated for me. I'm horrified, grossed out, fascinated and gratified all at once. I realize that I'm in the presence of a Lovecraftian legend. There is something terrible at work here, something that I want to run from screaming. I haven't even seen the guy yet. The door opens wider, and I'm holding my breath, both literally and metaphorically. As a wedge of light enters the condo, I get a glimpse of the interior wall. It's streaked with stuff. The light switch is actually caked with it, unbelievably thick. I can't see the plastic. The smell grows even worse, as I can tell, when I'm forced to take a quick breath. I'm in active fear for my health at what the fuck I might be breathing in. I don't remember what I was saying. Normal pizza guy, here's your stuff. This is what it costs type of sheet. I'm letting my autopilot take over as I process what I'm experiencing. I already know I'm never coming back. So I do the unthinkable. I give the door a little tap. A tiny kick with my toe as I unbag the pizza to hand to Bannock. I want more of a look inside. I don't get it. Point. The sight of Bannock stops me. Parts of my brain collapse. This poor creature, this wretch, this filthy, stanky unkempt guy is covered in months worth of oily residue. His eyes are a milky white, iris and pupil barely visible. Something drips from the corner of one eye. His hair is an oily, shiny tumble of black. He has warts everywhere. On his pockmarked nose, his face, his neck, his arms, his hands. And his hands are covered by that muck. That black stuff that's all over his doorway. Point. With mounting horror, I try desperately to make polite small talk as I watch his hands reach out toward me. Toward the pizza I'm fumbling to give him. I resist the urge to run. I watch with numb fascination as he holds a filthy, scum-encrusted wad of money out to me. I choke a little as I accept it. The door closes. It's done. The money in my hand is edged and smudged with black gunk. The smell quickly fades. An after image of Bannock's warty hand is frozen onto my mind's eye. The nails are thick and yellow, lined with black. I warp back into reality, the hallway snapping back into focus. Mere moments have passed since the encounter began, but I will never be the same. I have witnessed a sublime type of horror. I feel sorry for Bannock. I'm sure it sucks to be him. I very much doubt he's still alive. Poor guy. I got back to the store and told my manager what I'd seen and that I would never go there again. Shortly after, we banned him from receiving delivery. Health hazard. Plus, none of our drivers would go there anymore. This is late, but so what? I delivered pizza for Domino's back in 1988 to 1990 in Stockton circa. I mainly worked stores in the north side of town. It was closer to my home, and it wasn't as bad crime-wise as the main store in the south. The first apartment complex we had that made the no delivery list was done so partly due to what happened to me, twice. The first instance was a delivery to an apt right next to the local park/easement. When I got to the apt and knocked, no one answered the door, but after a few seconds, I hear a voice whisper behind me. I turn around and see no one there. I'm confused. I hear the voice again. It's slower to the ground, so I start looking down. I just see a hand reaching around into the entryway of the apartment. It's holding a gun that just happens to be pointed at me. The voice asks me to put the pizza down. No problem. Pizza is down. The voice then wants me to put the money on the pizza bag. Yup, I can do that too. I don't remember any thoughts of kicking anyone's ass at this point. Just wanted to get out of there without the disembodied hand with a gun shooting me. Eventually the hand with a gun is joined by hand grabbing the pizza and money. Then they both disappeared around the corner. I haven't seen or heard from either of them since. The second time I was robbed delivering a pizza there was about 6 months later. After the first incident, store policy was to call the customer back and confirm the order if the order came from the Willow Glen apartments. We've delivered a lot of pizzas, over 500 apts, to the complex, and haven't had any repeat robberies. This night was busy, so busy I was running into the store to grab deliveries and running to slash from the doors of houses just trying to keep up. One of my orders happens to be from said apartment complex. I'm somewhat familiar with the layout of the apartments, so I decide to park my car on the street next to the apartment complex and run to the apartment. I think I confused the robbery attempt because I didn't come from the parking lot, but from the opposite direction. Needless to say, I get to the door and the people living there say they didn't order no pizza. I start to leave. As I'm walking through the grass back to my car, 2 men come at me from opposite directions. One puts a gun in my gut, and I'm physically blocked the other direction by another guy. Once again they take the pizza and the money, change for $20. Unfortunately leave me not leaking. I really started to consider other career options at this point. So this isn't a no delivery story, but it's related to pizza stores and bad news, so you should like it. The store in downtown Stockton had only opened up about a year ago. I was friends with the manager that opened it, and during their first year they set all sorts of corporate Domino's records. For doing such a great job, the store manager ended up with a pretty nice bonus. A few weeks after he gets his bonus, he stops by our store to show us one of the things he bought with his suddenly flush wallet. A beautiful stainless steel S&W .357. Absolutely gorgeous. A couple of weeks later some punk decides he wants to rob the Domino's on Charter Way, downtown. My buddy is in his office, and through the little manager window he spies the punk pull a gun on his staff. The punk proceeds to head around to the manager's office to see how the cash business was tonight. Unbeknownst to punk, my buddy had gone against corporate Domino's policy and was packing heat. Door to manager's office is closed. Punk kicks it open. Manager steps out and fires twice. First one went in the gut, second one to the head. Unfortunately my friend lost his job for carrying a weapon to work, but it probably saved his life. I'm glad I don't work in the pizza business anymore. I did a lot of delivery over the years and saw a lot of blacklisted houses / complexes / projects, but most were for the same thing: risk. The places I worked were generally all managed by people that had worked their way up through the ranks, which meant most of them had done delivery at some point in time or another, and valued the discretion of the drivers. That being said, there was one place that got blacklisted while I was working at a Pizza Hut in the Phoenix area. This apartment, I still remember the number, was inhabited by a gentleman of a larger size. To call obese would be a disservice to people that are actually obese. This guy was a fat bastard. Not so fat that he couldn't do anything with his life. In fact, I've seen larger men than him working in the oil field, and car sales. Now let me be perfectly clear here. I have nothing against fat people. Truth be told, I could stand to drop a few pounds myself. This guy, however, didn't bathe. That's right, he didn't wash himself. Ever. You know that smell when your musky coworker woke up late, couldn't find his deodorant, and certainly didn't have time to shower. That time's a very large number. When he opened the door, the smell punched me in the face so hard I gagged and had to step back to find a whiff of fresh air. His tank top was a color somewhere between brown and yellow, and the smell of a cat box that had not been cleaned since Columbus sailed the ocean blue lingered with me long after I had left and chain smoked 2 cigarettes in my car with the windows up. The icing on the cake though was the black neck sludge that was seeping out of the folds under his chin. I looked moist and slimy, though when he moved his head it seemed to have the consistency of tar. The image of it haunts me to this day, nearly 15 years later. I described the incident in detail to my manager when I got back and told her the apartment number. As it turns out, we weren't supposed to deliver there in the first place, but as our computer system didn't have an actual blacklist, he slipped through the cracks. I don't know what can happen in a person's life to drive him to that situation, but I pray to the gods that it doesn't happen to me. We had to blacklist a customer who would constantly order pizzas and complain that there was not enough cheese. They ordered the Chicken Club pizza, which has jalapeno ranch sauce, ham, bacon, chicken, and tomato. Depending on the size of the pizza, topping amounts vary. However, due to the creamy nature of the sauce, we put half the amount of cheese on that particular pizza. So if a large Hawaiian has 1 cup of cheese, a large Chicken Club will have 1/2 cup of cheese, etc. Anyway, they ordered 78 times, which can be seen on the bottom right corner of our receipts, and had complained 49 times, seen on the bottom left corner of our receipts. They complained about the cheese again last summer, and basically our company's policy is to refund the customer fully and send a new pizza free of charge, or give the customer a credit in the amount of the pizza for the inconvenience. The deal this time, knowing that they were problem customers, was that they had to trade in their old pizza for the new one, which I made, and I used the same amount of cheese as the first, as it should be, and, hold in below, they had consumed about 3/4 of the pizza before phoning in their complaint. Our delivery drive brought back the nearly finished pizza and showed it to the manager, who promptly phoned the call center to blacklist them. The funny thing is, they created a new account under a different phone number, cell phone I presume, and ordered an additional 15 times with 9 complaints. By this point they were adding confusing instructions such as allergic to tomatoes, but not selecting to remove the tomatoes. So basically, if I opted to heed the allergy warning, they would complain that they did not receive their tomatoes, and if I did include the tomatoes, they would complain that they are allergic and want a new pizza. Our manager finally went ahead and banned the address completely, and they are only allowed to come in and order pizza so they can witness us making it and no longer complain about the product. We also had a customer provide us with the wrong address thrice and the wrong phone number twice in one night, meaning their pizza, which should have been delivered in 35 minutes, took about 3 hours to get there. They phoned the store directly to tell us we were idiots, and the store owner happened to be there, and he called them out on their nonsense. Owner, do you even know where you are? I know where I am. I'm at address. I don't even live in this city and I know the address. Do you even know your own name? You are an idiot. We don't want you as a customer. Do you even want the pizza? Because it's been sitting here for 3 hours now, and we've tried to deliver it to you 3 times. You can come pick it up, because I know where we are, and you don't love working at a pizza place. Finally, my time to shine. My parents own a pizza restaurant. A few years ago, after I had just gotten my license, a couple from an apartment complex called and ordered pizza. This complex is commonly known as a place that is heavily polluted with low-livs and drug addicts. When I get to the door, I hear the couple shouting. I timidly knock. At this point the man shouts, "He's here. Where's the goddamn money?" To this the woman replied, "I don't know." The guy then screams back at her some gibberish. I knock again thinking, oh crap, I'm going to die. The woman then says to the man, "Hey, I think it's in my other purse," to which the man replies, "I don't fucking care if you spent all your money on drugs." She screamed back at him, and then I heard a loud bang and she screamed, "Get off of me." I ran out till they got in my truck and was gone before they ever came to the door. However, the genius in me forgot that I had called them on my personal cell phone because they gave me an address that literally didn't exist. During this conversation I could tell they were high, but didn't think anything of it. By the time I reached the shop I had 15 missed calls from this couple. I blocked the number. Then they constantly called the store demanding their food, and my dad straight up told them that he refused to put a driver in danger and that if they wanted it, either the driver would come with a police escort or they could come get their food. They threatened to make us pay if we didn't bring it to them, but in all honesty they were probably too high to find the pizza shop in the first place. I work at a local pizza place, and as far as I know we only have a handful of houses on the no delivery list. One of them was added to the list because of a really dumb mistake on my part. Keep in mind this was just after starting this job. So, this was my first night closing, and it was approaching 11 o'clock. Needless to say, me and my manager were just ready to leave. Right before we closed, an order came in online. Had it been a call-in, we probably would have just told them we were closing soon, and that they would have to order earlier on the future. But since we were technically open, we made the order and I took it out. When I arrived I could instantly smell alcohol. These people were absolutely smashed. They greeted me. I told them their total and the guy said just sit the food on the table while I get the money, so I did. There's my mistake. I learned the hard way that they don't get food before I get money. The real issue here came from the fact that we had run out of a certain kind of large dough, so we made them 2 mediums, which is more food, and charged them for a large. Remember, these people were totally hammered, and they thought that I was trying to charge them for 2 pizzas instead of the 1. So after trying to explain this to them for 10 minutes, I call my manager and ask him to explain it. He tries, they get mad, I walk away for just a second to ask what to do. My manager says just bring the food back. I walk back in, and they had already eaten every last thing. Boxes everywhere, drunk guys and girls belching in delight of their satisfied hunger, and then me, dumbfounded by the fact that they had eaten everything in literally about 40 seconds, and still without an cash. They refused to pay, and when I got back to the store all my manager said to me was it wasn't really your fault, but we'll make sure it doesn't happen again. And then he proceeded to put their name and number on the list. I have been on the opposite side. By being banned from delivery by 3 different pizza places. This happened because I developed an obsession with acting as a pizza bird when the delivery arrived. Originally I only did it once, but I loved it so much I felt an actual compulsion to do it every time. I wore a bird suit, a suit of feathers as black and beautiful as an eternal everlasting void. My beak mask was green. The first time I did this, I answered the door in the costume and squawked. The delivery man was baffled. The second time, I taped an envelope with money on the door along with a note to leave the pizza on the stoop. I hid in the bushes across the lawn. When the delivery man put the pizza down, I screeched as loud as I could and ran across the lawn flapping my arms. The delivery man cursed in astonishment and leaped backwards. As I ran towards him, arms flapping and head bobbing, I squawked loudly and shrieked, "Squawk, I'm a pizza bird. Pizza bird. Squawk." When I got to the pizza I would peck the box and squawk until the delivery person left. I did this about 40 times in 2 months. 3 places banned me from delivery officially, but 4 others expressed annoyance and reservation about delivering to my home. I forced myself to stop when I accidentally made a new delivery woman cry from terror when I jumped out of a tree performing my pizza bird routine. I felt great guilt. I still feel an intense longing and desire to become the pizza bird again. But I'm afraid. I know that if I do it again, I will never stop. I will always from then on be pizza bird. A long time ago, I never drived. Just so you know, I was with a friend by the nickname of Buddha, really big 400-pound guy, and he paid me, I was 14ish at the time, to help him both navigate and keep him company during deliveries. We were out in the wrong part of town, 90th in Harvard or so. And he pulls up to the curb and has a talk with me. It went something like this: "I'm gonna show you something really important that you will remember for the rest of your life." He pulls up to a corner near a group of black folks and gets out the car with a map, looking like he was lost. As he is doing this, he had his hand in a battery operated cooler in the back seat. I had no idea why he had it, possibly for super cold deliveries. Some of the black guys exchange looks with one another. One moves across the street and diagonal from him. One walks up the street, keeping his eyes on Buddha, and the other to keep watch far behind. At this point I knew what was going on was a very old surround tactic in the hood, and asked Buddha to get in the car. He shakes his head and says, "I got this. Watch and learn." 2 of the black folks start running at him at the same time, shortly followed by one of the ones behind. He pulls out frozen to hell cans of Pepsi and slings it at one of them. It hits him in the face and explodes everywhere. Shards of metal like it was a hand grenade. Another one hits one in the knee and he just falls over crying. At this point the third guy is having second thoughts, but the fourth is getting his nerve together, yelling something along the lines of "It's just one fat as Hanky and a kid." Before they both charged him, he reached in between the 2 front seats and pulls out what I thought at first was a large caliber handgun. One of the dudes stops cold and turns around, the one further back, but the other continues the charge. Buddha puts up the gun and hits him square in the chest with the shot, setting the guy on fire. He runs around a bit and stops, drops and rolls. Buddha walks up to him while he's reeling from his burns and stomps him twice into the road. He gets back in the car, takes it out of park and drives away. As we hit 72nd he started talking again. "What I did back there is between you and me. If you ever see someone running up to the car aside from me, be it nigger or wigger, I want you to roll down the window and chuck these frozen Pepsis as hard as you can at them. If they keep coming I want you to grab the gun and shoot them, preferably in the face." I couldn't say anything. He was just entirely nonchalant about entirely wrecking 3 dudes like they were child's play. He then said, "In a couple years you will probably be doing this or something like this, and I don't want to pose niggas hurting ya. Know the places where it's not safe to deliver ever, and make sure to watch who is around you at all times. If you have to, run one over if they threaten you. Most of them have warrants anyways." He went on about where to go and not to go, and how the police response time was between 40 minutes to an hour over most of the east side. I stayed on for a while longer, 2 months, and only had to threaten to shoot someone once, which was the last time. I decided to get a dishwasher job for 1.50 an hour, 12 to 16 hours a day for the entire summer. Yay, slave wages. Also, factons of Pokemon cards. I guess the moral of the story is, racism is okay for self-protection, according to him, though I'm kinda inclined to agree for that part of town. Frozen Pepsi cans are lethal as hell if thrown by a 400-pound man, and flare guns are really good at setting people on fire, especially if they are wearing synthetic clothing, do-rags and the like. Peas. In case anyone wants to know, Buddha died 6 years later of heart failure at 580 lbs. He didn't even reach his 40s. Used to work pizza, but we didn't deliver. This story is about the wonderful and faked up world of working roadside assistance. Point for those of you who don't know how it works, basically people with certain kinds of insurance also have roadside assistance that covers things like changing flat tires and jump starting cars and sheet. Point for the most part it was decent people having a sheet day, so helping them wasn't usually too bad. Sure, sometimes you'd get a grown-as man too dumb/good to change a tire, or a person would be mad about needing a jump or whatever, but generally the job wasn't too terrible. As far as customers went, well then the goddamn son of a beach and cell phone companies got involved, and every ghetto's dickbag would add $3 a month onto their phone bill to get roadside assistance. Cue the bullshit. Point people would constantly call for gas. Like not even run out of gas, just call for free gas. Sometimes they'd even have the nerve to be in the running car waiting on me and say shit like, oh it's about to be out of gas. Well, this one dude I'll just call Dumbfuck would call all the time for gas. Like anytime he went anywhere he'd call for his gas first. Piece of shit car in the worst ghetto apartments that happened to be about 40 minutes drive from my house. He always seemed to know exactly when I finally got home to call. Point my job was 24-hour shifts, so imagine running calls for like 14 hours straight and finally getting home, only to have Dumbfuck call for gas for the 5th time that week. Infuriating doesn't begin to describe it. Point I talked to the insurance company and reported abuse of service. They didn't care. I made Dumbfuck wait hours sometimes. He didn't care. Eventually I just yelled at him and told him how faked up it was to do this all the time, and how often other people who really needed help were waiting on his ass. He looked sad and said sorry. Point didn't hear from him after that point for 2 weeks, then it started again. Fuck this faking guy. 2 gallons of diesel fixed him right up. Oops. Fuck that sheet. Only got $10 a call, had to pay out of pocket for gas, and wait to hopefully get it back from the insurance company, and had to pay for all my fuel running calls. Never again. If you ever need roadside assistance, please tip like a big baller, cause that's a brutal as moth a faking job. Point the end. While I was in university, one of my jobs was for an answering service. The hours were 3 PM to 11 PM. I didn't work every night but fairly often. 0.30 hours or so per week. It was a really small place that couldn't keep its workers, but that was another issue. Anyways, we ordered a lot of food because we were lazy. I ordered from Greek on Wheels all night out of the blue from the random list of menus we had, and I ordered Canadian food. Their poutine was incredible, and so was my bread with tzatziki. I did let the other 3 co-workers that worked with me that night get a small plate and get a bit of poutine because I really liked it and I wanted to know that they thought. Anyways, everybody started ordering from the Greek place until Al got us banned from there. That is whole. I call one day to place an order and they say sorry, your number is listed as banned. I was like, what? Turns out Al, who was a douche, had ordered food and didn't like it. He said it was cold and gross, rest of us loved it, so who knows. So he called and beached them out. Yeah, he beached them out for not liking their food. Not only that, but he placed huge orders giving Walmart's address, etc. He made around $150 worth of fake orders and they figured out it was him. I felt horrible for the workers, the delivery guy, and to be seen as an asshole by these people, even if I always tipped well, 20% or more depending, never below 20%, and was polite. Everyone else was the same way but Al. Anyways, Al got fired and we scrounged up $75 at work from everyone. I went and gave it to them at their work and said that Al was fired and that the rest of us didn't know. that we didn't come up with the full amount, since a lot of us felt like we did nothing wrong and didn't want to donate, and I told them that I knew they wouldn't deliver to us anymore, but that we were all sorry for the douchebag coworker's actions. I wish it ended well, but the manager told me, "You guys are lucky we don't press charges." He took the money. He said he would serve me at home and at the restaurant, just not at work. It sucked because even if I said, "I know you won't serve us at work," I was hoping that he would see that the rest of us did nothing wrong and paid for half the fake orders this douche made. I can kind of understand, but it did suck. Oh well, I tried and my conscience is clear. I never went back, by the way. I was too frustrated and ashamed. Mostly just people trying to get free food, but there was one in particular that recently happened. It was one hell of a snowstorm, and we were literally the only pizza place within 10 miles that was still delivering. I had already been stiffed 3 times that night, and since I was taking a delivery to one of the poorer neighborhoods in our area, I figured I was going to get stiffed again. I get to the door, and they had sent their kid with a handful of money instead of coming to the door themselves. This little girl couldn't have been more than 5 or 6, wordlessly hands me a 20 and a handful of change. Total was something like $21.56, and it looked like there were quite a few quarters, so I didn't count it right there. I give her the food and head back to my car, only to realize they had shorted me by about $1. Whatever. I'm tired from driving for hours in conditions that had people crashing left and right, so I don't want to deal with a customer that would have undoubtedly denied shorting me, so I head back to the shop, beach to my manager a little, and move on. The next day morning, this beach calls the store and claims that the pizza we delivered last night had too much sauce, and she wants a free pizza. Manager tells her he'll call her back, never does. The morning after that, I'm the opening driver, and she calls asking for someone above the manager. I tell her the owner will be in soon, and she can call back then. She does, and we spend a while trying to find her ticket. We find it, and I recognize the address as the people who stiffed me. The owner, who I have never seen give out free food, is not taking any of her sheet, and I get to watch as she rips this beach a new one about how the drivers were risking their lives to bring her a pizza, and she rewarded me by costing me $1 and gas, then has the audacity to call back demanding free food 2 days after we had delivered the original order. The owner then informed her that we would no longer be taking food to that address, and that she should have a nice day. Probably the most satisfying thing to have occurred in my time working there. When I ran a delivery store with a massive range and tens of thousands of customers, I was a lot stricter. We had the best pizza, the fastest deliveries, the lowest prices, and the friendliest staff. We were the store you want to order from, not the store you settle on. Because of this, we set up a system for banning customers who hurt the company, stressed our employees, or cost us money. For example, for very bad customers, swearing, yelling at CSR, etc. 1. Warning. 2. Warning. 3. Ban for excessive complaints. Must be in a row or 5 out of 6. Seriously, if you have such a problem with our pizza, order elsewhere. 1. Free pizza. 2. Free pizza. 3. Free side. 4. Suggest a competitor for next time. 5. Ban for driver harassment. 1. Warning. 2. Warning. 3. Ban for perpetually stiffing drivers. 1 to 5. Nothing. 6 to 8. Politely inform them that the delivery charge is not a tip and they should leave a couple dollars for the driver. 9. Ask for a tip. 10. Double delivery charge. Give second to driver robbery. Instant ban. Once. Don't care if they don't know you. Don't care if you ordered before. I need my drivers to feel safe when taking deliveries. Assault. Instant ban. 3 times. Cops will be called. I will press charges. I spend all day kissing customers' ass, so you really don't want to fuck with me, or my employees throwing the hot pizza at someone, faking too many times. Instant ban. I don't care if it's a joke. Sometimes they can be up to 190 degrees and cause serious burns. It's dangerous and you're a faking idiot if you try it. How are so many idiots this stupid? By eliminating the crazes in our delivery area, our drivers were much happier, and as a result, gave much better to the 99% of regular customers. It's amazing how much one dick can ruin your day. And it's amazing how simply refusing them service can make a workplace so much better. Not just a no delivery list. More like a do not serve these people at all list. My two favorites are these. We had a guy who worked at a vape shop next door, so he ordered all the time. He always tried to use a 20% off coupon, but would refuse to bring it by, so one day I informed him I could no longer give him the discount without the coupon. This guy went apeshit, ripped his shirt off and started yelling, then proceeded to grab as many 20-ounce sodas as he could, and then ran out of the door. He would always get a sub which is $7.99, so he only saved $1.50. Second one, there's a man who calls in and is super drunk every time. So drunk you can practically smell the beer through the phone. He always tries to convince the order taker that he's our undercover boss. They can be fired / given a raise depending on how they treat him during this call etc. One day he orders, and I get a phone call from my driver who is yelling into the phone about how this guy's going to kill him. I immediately tell him to return to the store. Not even 2 minutes later this man calls me and tells me that he's going to beat the shit out of that nigger if I ever send him back to his house again. This guy is apparently so racist that as soon as my black delivery driver stepped out of his car, this man started screaming at the top of his lungs and refused to accept the food. I actually just got home from work and the drunk guy called right before I left. Informing him that he had been banned was such a good feeling. Repost of my own from old account was Sinister Prime, which I deleted, but mine nonetheless sorta fits the bill. More of a unofficial list the drivers had. I have been out of the delivery business for a few years now, but I still remember a couple of the more memorable moments. Today we will hear of Mr. Salami and the generosity the man gave to all of us at the store. Once upon a time, like 3 years ago, a guy ordered a salami pizza and 6 20-ounce cokes. He lived in a large community in which had 2 entrances and literally over 30 miles of roads inside in which we had to travel at 35 miles per hour or the rent-a-cops would get us and call out store. The total drive to this man's house came to about 10 miles round trip and took close to an hour due to having to drive into the back of the housing community. My first delivery was enlightening. I pulled up onto a nice house. I walk to the door, ring the bell, and out comes Mr. Salami. He was covered in stained clothing from head to toe and smelled like ass. He was one of those guys you wanted to avoid getting close to at all costs. He signs his receipt, turns, and walks away without a word. No tip. So, I lost a bit of money on the delivery, but whatever. Fast forward a few months. We have been getting weekly orders from Mr. Salami and no one has gotten the tip from this man, and everyone says he is rude to them as well. I get the unlucky draw and have to deliver to him again. So, I pull up with his drinks and salami pizza. It had been a terrible tip day, and I was apparently obvious in my dislike for this man, because he spoke for the first time to me. This is the convo as close as I remember it. This took place directly after he handed me the CC slip with 0 and the tip spot. Manuscript, you wanna know why I don't tip you guys? Me, actually, yes, I would love to know why. Manuscript, because you don't do anything to earn it. You don't come to my table and refill my drinks or bring me my food on a plate ready to eat. All you do is sit in your cars and bring me my overly expensive food and expect a handout. Me, while we may sit in our cars all day, it costs us money to bring you your food. We all pay to bring this food to you. Manuscript, not my fault. Get a better job. Blame your president, your parents, your boss, whoever you want, but it is in no way my fault you took the job. This is when I leave. I was half expecting to get a complaint, but he never did. However, I did inform all of the drivers what I was told, and that man never received a hot pizza again. Petty? Absolutely. But it felt good to get something out of the gas money we had to waste to take this to him. We generally would get a double and make sure he was the last to get his. Edit. Format. HMM. Worked at Domino's store in the UK for 5 years and was assistant manager for a bit as well. We blacklisted customers pretty regularly, though infrequently, say once every couple of months. Highlights reel. We stopped all internet orders being made to 2 tower blocks in one of the less well-off parts of our delivery area because of attempted thefts from drivers and fraud. That was fun to explain to the decent people who lived there, but everyone I spoke to took it well. We banned one guy from getting deliveries because he threatened to slash up our stupid we cow, his words, not mine, of a manager. He then got his next door neighbor to place orders for him, except his was a very specific, very particular, instantly recognizable order. We phoned her, told her it wasn't gonna happen. She lied through her teeth and said it wasn't for him, all the while I can hear the guy in the background going mental. This guy then decides that he'll have better luck placing the order by coming into the store. He threatens the staff to take his order. He's told to fuck off, my words, not his. He's threatened with police involvement. His mate talked him down, and they left point blacklisted a guy who was a serial complainer. Something was always wrong, regardless of how perfect it was, when it left the store. Always wanted free food. Always had already ate the other pizza before phoning to complain. Always wanted his money back too. He was advised that if the quality of our products and service is consistently not up to the standard he expects, he should find another store to give his business to. Point my personal favorite. Full on sap / borderline autistic dude. He had one bad experience with us and complained directly to the CEO of the Domino's UK business rather than phoning the store and asking to speak with a manager. We caught some stick for that, but hey ho. Next time, he came up to the store to collect his order because, and I quote, he wanted to see it being made in front of him. It was after this that we received 2 unannounced food safety inspections and got another email from the UK CEO containing a complete raft of allegations concerning poor hygiene standards in our store from this same guy. By the way, we passed the food inspections with flying colors. One recommendation to replace a bin, which was acted on immediately. Third time's a charm. He comes into the store with a notebook, doesn't actually order anything, and starts taking note down of his observations and what he thinks we are doing wrong, including name badges and descriptions of members of staff. This is where we drew the line on this guy. He asked him to leave and not to return point, so he emails the CEO of Domino's again complaining that he was rudely and violently ejected from the store. We produced CCTV showing our manager asking him politely and calmly to leave, and the CEO says he's had enough of him and tells him all further issues should be dealt with through the store directly. Christ, this is long, not finished yet. He comes into the store and orders this time, still with the notebook. My turn to deal with him now. Point me. Excuse me sir, but I believe you've been told that you're no longer welcome in this store. Him, yes, but I placed an order. Me, that's fine sir. I'll be cancelling your order just now. Him, I've paid for it already. Me, well then sir, I'll also refund your payment to you, but we will not be making your order. I believe you've also been warned that you're not to take down any personally identifying information about members of staff in the store, as it would be a breach of our staff's privacy. So I must ask you to put the pen and not to put back into your pocket. He tried that sheet in 2 other stores in our franchise before he was banned from all stores in our franchise. Good times. We have one called the Downs house. Now I wasn't working when the calls happened. I've only heard the tales of this particular house. The kid on the phone actually goes to my school, and I've had random weird encounters with this kid. Anyway, onto the story. At the Downs house there are 3 to 4 mentally impaired people who live there. They call and a delivery driver picks up the phone. They go through the order and then it gets to wings. We want barbecue, they say okay. Spicy or sweet? Asks the driver. Barbecue, they respond. Spicy or sweet? Barbecue, they say again. And the whole call goes on like that for around 15 minutes. At the end their cost was around $50. There quotes the standard 40-minute delivery time. When the driver gets there with the food they only have around $25 and argue that that was the cost of the food. Driver says no, but the occupants of the house don't have any more money. Driver returned to the store with the pizza and the Downs house calls again saying they have more money. They remake pizza and go back. They still have only $25. No more, no less. The same amount. Driver returns and they call again saying they have the right amount. Pizza place remakes the pizza and goes out there for a third time. This time they have the right amount. The driver returns to the store with only a 0.60 tip. As of now they are blocked from delivery. TLDR, a house with mentally challenged people call. Order food. Driver gets there, don't have enough money, don't get food. Call saying they have enough. Remake food. Driver gets out there, and they have the same amount as the first. They call a third time, and remake the food again, and they finally have enough money. Driver gets 0.60 tip. They are now blocked. I posted this story with an older account too, but I wound up deleting the account a few years ago. It was titled something like "She Did What?" or "How an Entire Apartment Complex Got Blacklisted." This is going to be long point, as you can tell from the accounts already posted. There's always that one area of town or apartment complex that no one likes delivering to. One such apartment complex outside of New Orleans was a black hole of disgusting human beings living in their own filth. Crack addicts that pool enough money together to have a flop house, or people living off of the government with multiple children. Before I get called a racist, there were plenty of different colors of people living in the area. I had been doing terrible with tips that day whenever a delivery came up for one of these locations, and with me being the only driver at the store that day, I had no choice since the order was ready to go. I explained to my manager, who I was good friends with, that I hate this place and I'm not too happy about having to go there because I've already got a bad feeling about it. She said that if I deliver this time, if anyone from that complex calls in for delivery, she'll say that we don't have any drivers today, so I won't have to go back. I agreed that was a fine compromise, and I headed out the door. The complex was only about 3 miles away from the store, so I got there pretty quickly. Traffic wasn't so bad, and I started feeling a bit better about this delivery, and I decided just to put on a happy face and do my job. Once I pull into the parking lot, I notice that there's no one around. Usually this place is bustling with activity, but today the whole place seemed a bit off. I ascend the stairs to the apartment, and I knock on the door. Before I can finish knocking, a small child that appeared to be around 4 years old runs out the door, clipping my leg, and starts screaming, "The pizza man! The pizza man here! Mama, mama, the pizza man here!" This kid almost knocks me down. He's flipping out, and mama is nowhere to be seen. I glanced into the apartment to see about 5 or 6 more children milling about the living room waiting for their food. About 20 seconds later, a very large, very pale black lady comes to the door, money in hand. The only reason I mention that she's black is because of how extremely pale this woman was. I had no idea a black person could even be that pale. I mean, she looked rough. She came to the door and without saying a word proceeded to projectile vomit all over herself, the money she's holding, the pizza boxes, and my arm and chest. I didn't even hesitate. I walked away immediately. I was about 15 feet away when she yelled, "Come back. I need to feed my kids." I felt bad about just walking away once she mentioned that, because I hadn't really put thought to the kids going hungry, as I was wondering how the hell I'm going to deal with this once I got back to the store. I went back, and she then attempts to hand me puke-covered cash to pay for the pizza. No way, lady. No way am I touching that money. She thinks for a while and then says, "Well, would you take a check?" "Sure, as long as you don't puke on it." So I finish the transaction, no tip, and get the hell out of there as quickly as I possibly can, doing my best to wipe the vomit off of my shirt and arm with a rag I had in my truck. I walked back into the store seething. My manager immediately knew something was up and plainly said what happened, already knowing there was a good story to reflect the scowl on my face. After I explained the entire situation to her, she was furious. She called the woman back asking her if she had thrown up on her driver. Once she verified that she had, and didn't even apologize by the way, my manager hung up on her after telling her that she doesn't have to worry about puking on another driver because she's now blacklisted. My manager then got on the computer and pulled up the blacklist to add her to it. Only unfortunately for everyone else at that complex, there was no way to put in an individual apartment number because the restaurant was still using a program and computers that was designed in the 80s, so the entire place was blacklisted. No one from that complex could order delivery ever again. And that's the story of how a woman's vomit got an entire apartment complex blacklisted from a big 3 pizza chain. not a pizza guy, but this will be about the place I used to work. I'm a pretty shitty storyteller, but here it goes. Our delivery computer has the address /name /phone number /etc point info about a given customer, with a comment section at the bottom for free text. Most places that we don't deliver are due to non-payment, and we've had a few houses listed as no deliver because they were physically combative while cussing out the delivery guys/girls. The wackiest order I ever delivered to was a sweet lady who was a regular customer. Her order always started with 1.5 full carafes and ended with a few random hors d'oeuvre from the shop. She lived in a nearby senior living community, but was quite able-bodied. She claimed she liked living there because most of her neighbors couldn't make it up to the 3rd floor, or if they could, they'd soon move out because it's tough for most of the older people to climb 3 flights of stairs, so it was quiet. Around the holiday season, she stopped calling completely and dropped off the radar for a few months. Everyone at the shop wondered if she died, moved, or hit the jackpot. Fast forward past August and she finally gives us a call, hastily orders the usual 1.5 full carafes with a few hors d'oeuvres, and slams the phone. Most of us at the front were thinking the actual fuck, did she just call? She didn't even stay to chat. Her voice didn't sound the same, instead sounding raspy, short of breath, and half an octave lower. At the time, the manager and I decided to go together to surprise her with a free hot meal and dessert. What we were met with was a clusterfuck between what the sheet and not liquor. It's the middle of the day and we are beginning to sweat beads. We make our way up her building's stairs, which got dirtier as we climbed. I thought to myself, oh, they must have cleaned the bottom couple flights and hadn't gotten to regular S flight. As we approach her floor, there's an overwhelming stench of piss and burnt tobacco, which was odd, since I remembered her as an immaculate health nut. Before we get a chance to knock on her door, I notice movement from the kitchen window blinds and hurried footsteps. A ghost of the woman I knew answered the door. Her hair no longer had the sheer and shine of a year ago. Her lips were pale and shriveled. She looked like she lost most of her weight and came across as shaky and unbalanced. Appearances aside, the stench that hit me was the worst smell I've ever come across, even in my day of working in the air. It was a putrid smell mixed with aromatic calcium that had a lingering aftertaste. We tried our best to keep smiling because we were overjoyed to hear from her again. After exchanging some pleasantries, she invited us in. The manager and I took one look into her now dimly lit, smelly wallpaper peeling apartment and kindly declined. A second before she snapped, I saw something in her expression change, like shifting from a weak and emaciated shadow into an enraged bull. She lunged at the both of us, trying to grab at our faces, but missed. I don't know where all that strength suddenly came from, nor the violence. We dropped the food and did our best to avoid her getting hit or hitting her frail body. A few seconds passed and we grabbed hold of her clothes to shove her back into her apartment. She tripped over the door ledge. We slammed the door, quickly grabbed the smashed bags of food, and hightailed the fuck out of there. I don't think I ever ran faster in my life than in that moment. On our way back to the shop, we called the cops and gave them a quick rundown of what happened. The next day, the cops showed up at our shop with a few details. They had a few reports from her neighbors who claimed they heard screams at night, smelled of burnt meat, heard footsteps at all times of the day, and noticed high traffic from new people to their building. Turns out the regular got into drugs and animal sacrifice. The rotting smell came from trying to hide the stray animals in her apartment. The burning calcium and meat smell was from her burning select animal parts on her balcony, and they found bags of empty containers that had amphetamines, barbiturates, bath salts, and narcotics. I don't know what happened to her after that incident, but she hasn't called back. After that ciao, we put a strict holy shit do not ever faking. Deliver here used to be a pleasant regular customer, now will attack you. She attacked Facibles and manager, hang up the phone if you already haven't and let manager know. TDLR. Yes, we had a no delivery list, usually for no payments or customers being racist as holes to our delivery drivers. Craziest reason I read for a no deliver was to a customer who used to order on the regular, but stopped calling for almost a year. Manager and I go to deliver food plus freebie. She tries to eat our faking faces off and tear out our throats while screeching at us. We escaped. Turns out she did drugs and sacrificed animals. Neighbor complaints were confirmed after investigation. We put her on the no deliver list. Sorry for any spelling errors. It's late at night. I delivered a few years back, a couple of years at one place, and only about 4 months at another. In those 4 months I was robbed at gunpoint 3 times. The second time, it was a pretty typical place, a shitty apartment complex in a shitty part of town. I had delivered there numerous times, and was just waiting for the time I was robbed. Of course I get to the door, and there's a teenager out front. I waves at me, and I pull up, and get out of the car with the enormous order. He tries the door, and it's locked. He utters something like, "Oh man," they play in. And then down the stairs behind me come 4 to 5 more kids, one of which had a red mask on and a handgun extended out toward me. "Get on the ground, get on the ground," he demands, and I'm rolling my eyes at this kid like, "Are you faking serious?" But I don't argue with firearms, so I take a seat on the ground. At this point he decides to buy some points with whatever gang he's representing, and clock me on the side of the head. I'll never forget the marshmallow-like, mittened fist on my ear. Anyway, I give them the money, and they grab the pizzas and they all run off. Didn't die. Fuck yeah. Anyway, week or two later I get another run that's at a house directly across the street from that very same apartment complex. I show up, and who is outside to receive the order, but the very same kid who was waiting for me at the robbery. About the same time the very same group of kids come out of the house, not to rob me, but to look very amused in my general direction. These little sheets had the balls to rob me and then just order pizza, like it was nothing. I recognized every one of them. The fat one I didn't recognize must have been the gunner from before, and it was obvious they recognized me. I got back to the store after that and told my bosses who I had just delivered to, and they couldn't care less. The next faking day, when the same people ordered, and I got the run, I told my boss, "No fuck no. I'm not taking this order. Those guys faking robbed me last week." My boss looked at me like I'm some kind of asshole. He couldn't care less that these are the same kids that had a gun in my face. Of course, this is the same piece of shit job I've bitched about in countless comments, so just par for the course. But yeah, that was the place I did not faking go to. Other drivers did though. I don't work anywhere in the industry anymore, but I used to deliver occasionally for a few places around town. We had a small assortment of the usual high crime Section 8 apartment blocks blacklisted because of violence/robberies/etc. Pretty much any delivery place near any urban area will. We also had some more interesting cases. One particularly memorable address, 12 2nd Avenue. I remember it to this day, but I'm not naming the state or town. Ordered fairly late one summer night. Late enough to be dark, which takes a while at this latitude. Red flag. #1 is that I'm walking up to a row house end unit in a semi-rough part of town and there are no lights on. No porch light and none visible in any of the windows on any floor. Red flag. #2 is when I knock on the door and there is an immediate and noticeable silence. I realize belatedly that someone muted their TV when they heard me knock. It's hot. The row houses don't have air conditioning unless the tenants install window units. So a bunch of upstairs windows on this place are open. Shut up, y'all. I hear someone desperately, but quite loudly, whisper from upstairs. We gon' pretend like we's not here, and when we call and complain and shit they have to give us our stuff for free. I am momentarily rendered speechless by this idiocy. I can hear you. I call up to the 3rd story window. More shushing from upstairs. If you don't answer your door, I'm taking this back to the restaurant. Your order will not be redispatched. We will not give it to you for free. I know you can hear me. You'll get banned for non-payment. No reply. So I give up. I'm walking away now. Last chance to get your order. Ultimately I went back to the restaurant. Sure enough, later that night these bosses call up and try to complain. "Excuse me, we had ordered our food over an hour ago and the man didn't come." Sure, buddy, you're banned. Next, more to come. Maybe. Not enough time right now. This will get buried. I used to work at a very popular pizza bar in my area, little ma and pop shop that had run the big boys out of the area, Pizza Hut, Domino's, because the locals were loyal and they just couldn't get the business. Well, there was this one guy, we will call him Bob. Now Bob is an overweight guy who is physically and mentally disabled. He is nice and polite and tips well. However, his hygiene is so bad that it is hard to breathe around him, as all you can smell is urine and fecal matter. It is so bad, just by being in his doorway for less than 2 minutes the stench latches onto your clothes, and it will linger until you wash them. Now boss man knew this, and after numerous complaints by us drivers, he told the guy he would no longer deliver unless he is clean. This didn't change, so boss man blacklisted him. I left that place after boss man died, after he was king hit outside a pub, and the place went downhill. A few years later I was down on my luck and out of work with my wife 8 months pregnant, and got another job at another pizza place in a different suburb that overlapped my old work's delivery zone. I found out Bob is still alive and still getting pizza delivered. His health has declined, and he has gotten worse in the stench department. New boss man doesn't give a fuck about his drivers and makes fun of whoever has to deliver to him, then forces us to go home, have a shower before coming back, which means we miss out on deliveries, therefore miss out on money. Guy was a cunt, so I quit and went back to school, and I'm now a chef. Not pizza, but Sammy's. I'm a manager at a Jimmy John's sandwich shop, and we had been having minor problems with a business across the street. The guy was a real prick on the phone, and we always had to sort out exactly what he wanted because he didn't seem to want to take the time to understand the menu. One night he calls, obviously smashed, and orders at least 20 sandwiches with 20 chips and 20 drinks to guzzle it down with. This was during our late dinner rush, and I had one delivery driver on the clock. Of course he calls after receiving the order and half the sandwiches aren't what he wanted. Of course I offer new and improved Sammys for free. Send them out. My driver comes back in tears with a box of half-eaten sandwiches and empty chip bags. She had walked into an office of drunk grown men at some sort of office party. Beer everywhere. He had demanded a refund, threatened to throw food at the driver's car, and publicly harassed her in front of his tattered employees. Needless to say, he did not get a refund, and we have since gone through our entire system to write dickheads do not deliver on every phone number with their company name saved to it. A man from the same building, but not the same business, called a few days later and explained that we are at least the third business to refuse them delivery, and that they have also needed to call the cops numerous times because of their drunken behavior. Sorry dickheads, no Sammys for you. I delivered pizzas for 6 years while I went back to school. I still look back on it as one of the best jobs I had, just for the learning experience. I delivered in the suburbs of Massachusetts, about 30 minutes outside Boston. There was one time I delivered to a house on the end of a cul-de-sac, and the guy took forever to answer the door. I figured it was because I was so fast. He finally opens the door and is tying the string of his sweatpants. He has a very noticeable erection trying to escape his pants, and what appeared to be coke all over his nose. He tipped well, so I wasn't mad. I told my boss when I got back, and we all had a good laugh. I really wondered why he was even hungry enough for a pizza. One time I got a first date from delivering. I went to the house with a metric fuck ton of food. An older woman opened the door with kids running around. She tells me her son ordered, but he just ran to the bank to get the money for the food, and he will be right back. She asks me to bring the food in for her, and I oblige. I hang out with a lady for a while, and she tells me she is watching her son's kids because he just moved back in because his wife left him and the family, that it's so hard for a single dad with 3 kids, and basically his whole story. I laugh because at the time I was a single mom. She lights up like a Christmas tree as he walks in the house. She starts talking me up to him with what information she's gathered from me in 5 minutes. I get paid and leave. When I get back, my boss asked what the hell happened, and I assume it was because I took so long. Turns out the guy called back and left his number for me. He wanted to talk to me to apologize for how his mom acted, and he ended up taking me out a few times afterwards. I also started refusing the go to the CD chain motel after a guy opened the door with no lights on in the room and asked if I wanted to come back later to party. The answer was something along the lines of "fuck no." I started carrying a knife after that one. This is more of the store and manager's fault, but I still went back to the store and put these people on the do not take delivery orders from this house list. Also, I don't have enough time before work to proofread this. I apologize for any spelling or grammatical errors. I delivered pizza in a martyr. It was amazingly efficient until I had a big 30 pizza order. I just didn't have room to take more than that. One night the store got a delivery request from this semi-regular customer. They always ordered exactly the minimum amount to get it delivered. They had a really awkward S-shaped driveway. It was pure dirt and really steep point anyways. I was one of the better actually did my job drivers that we had at the store. I was quick and courteous and didn't dawdle as many of the others did. So when I showed up at the house I tried my best to get my poor little car up the hill. It wasn't having it. I spun out and almost careened into a ditch once. Eventually, after trying for about 10 minutes, I called my manager to tell him that my car was stuck in a driveway that he insisted I drive up, as I wasn't allowed to tell the customers to walk down to the car about 30 yards away from the house. Why didn't you walk the pizza up to them? I can hear you asking. Well, they had a junk lot in their front yard and about 30 dogs that were almost all feral. They would jump all over you getting from the car to the house when you actually made it up the hill, and would cover you in mud and dirt and nass jumping all over you, not to mention barking non-stop and doing that flanking maneuver dogs do where you are constantly being distracted by the ones up front, while a third goes around behind you to jump your sheet without you seeing it coming. So, needless to say, I wasn't looking forward to trekking my happy ass up that stupid mud-laden, dog-infested, no-tip-getting, and rude as people on top of it, hill. Yet, I did. I knew my manager was sending a dude with a truck to help me get unstuck, so I just decided to bite the bullet. In the meantime, I step out of the car, holding the small pizza and 2-liter in a bag. I put my full weight on the ground and realize just how muddy it really is. I think my foot sinks like 2 good inches into the ground. Perfect, I think was the sarcastic term I used at that moment. I'm climbing up this treacherous little fact stick when I see 3 little girls open a door and start staring at me as I try to get up to them. I'm slipping, falling, and dragging their food with me the whole time. Finally I get to the top, covered in mud and completely soaked from the rain. The little girl in the middle reaches out her hand with the money. It's $8 in change, by the way. Grabs the pizza, drops the money on the ground, into a mud puddle, and then shuts the door, leaving me to stand there, empty-handed and staring at a mud puddle that now holds the only way my tips won't be diminished by $8. Fuck me, was all I could think. I clamber around in the mud for about 4 minutes till I get about $6, say fuck this, and leave. Slipping and sliding back down the hill. I have so much mud on my shoes I can barely operate the clutch in my car, which I have just started to warm up while I wait for the other driver with a truck to show up. I wait about 20 more minutes, thinking that the driver was just on another delivery and I would see him there soon enough. Well, after a while I call the manager back asking if dude is on the way. He says, "What are you talking about?" This was the same one I talked to. I say, "I'm stuck in the goddamned mud, man. Are you sending someone to help get me out or not?" He says something like, "I thought you would have got it unstuck on your own by now, or do you not know how to drive?" Needless to say, I was faking irate at this point and told him he could have a driver come help me get out. He could come himself, or I would be going home with every dollar in my pocket and wouldn't be coming back to work there. He was acting pissy about it and like I was somehow the asshole in the situation. So, he sends this dude Patrick, who had the truck I was waiting on the whole time. Patrick gets stuck trying to help me get out. He didn't have 4WD FAC, so, in all we spent about 2 hours getting both cars back to the store. We had to stop at a Magic Wand car wash to spray our cars off so they would drive properly. I went back to the store, told my manager that if anything like that ever happened again, I would be quitting on the spot. That I was going to be the one deciding which deliveries I take from now on, and if they are worth the money/effort. As it was obvious he wasn't capable of making that decision himself. He started to challenge me on it, but when I explained how much money he'd just lost, having 2 drivers out of commission for close to 5 hours between them, the number of deliveries we could have made in that time and the fact that it was his insistence that I take it that caused all this, he started to understand my point of view. I also forced him to bad order the delivery I'd just taken. so that instead of my losing $2 I was gaining 6. Because I was not going to have gone through that bullshit for -$2. I blackballed myself after a miscommunication made a pizza man hate me. It was pouring rain, and I had ordered almost an 1:30 earlier. I was getting really annoyed, so I called the place, only to get an exasperated employee saying he didn't know where his boss was, and that he had left ages ago. Right about this time I get a pounding knock on my door and open it to see a soaking wet and very angry Middle Eastern man who spoke very little English. "Why you not answer your phone? You never called me, dude. I call you 50 times. This your number?" He is basically screaming at me and holds up the receipt with my correct phone number on it. "Yep, that's it. Why you not answer? I've been calling for an hour. Dude, you never called me. Let me see your phone." Pulls out his phone sneering and shoves it in my face. Lo and behold, he really did call over 50 times, but to the wrong number. He transposed 2 of the numbers and had been calling the wrong number for an hour trying to find my apartment. When I showed him his mistake, he just went quiet and looked like he might pop a blood vessel. We quietly exchanged money and then he looks at me very insistently for a tip, and that's when it got awkward. I paid the tip over the phone on my card when I ordered. Shouldn't it be listed there on the receipt? He didn't say a word, just turned and walked away. To be fair, I really had already tipped him, and pretty well too. Like $10 on a $20 bill point. But yeah, that's why I never order from that place again. I'm certain that man will cheat on my pizza. My old store in Eny, Georgia, we had a guy try to molest 2 male drivers, myself included, and wouldn't go back. He lived in a shed behind someone's home with an extension cord running from their basement through his window. Turns out he couldn't find anywhere else to live, since he wasn't allowed within some distance of schools for molesting boys years ago. My last store in Dawsonville, there's a woman affectionately named Trailer Trash Tammy that orders things with no onions or extra sauce or something, and complains and gets more food free. Never tips, really far away. She will order a sandwich or pasta for herself, call back and get a free large pizza a second driver has to deliver. Got free so her boyfriend and her 4 kids can eat too. We would get her to sign a receipt saying the order is correct before the driver will take payment and leave the door. She would still call back and try to get more free stuff, citing, "Well, I didn't get a good look at it at the door. It was dark." We just wouldn't give her a credit, so she stopped calling. Current store incoming. Lol. Don't know where the guy lives, but he threw his pizzas at the CSR behind the counter because something was wrong. If I recall, he said there wasn't enough cheese or something. We offered to remake it, but told him all the portions are weighed, so it will probably be the same outcome, and suggested ordering extra cheese in the future. The police came to remove him and basically said they couldn't do anything except have him leave, that throwing food doesn't constitute assault, even though the pizzas are like 400 egg.f, and would have melted his skin off had the box come open. Anyway, he said he wouldn't come back anyway, since we were all factored. He came back about 3 weeks later and no one would take his order or acknowledge him, so he just yelled and cursed at us and hasn't been back in over a year now. Former delivery driver for a pizza place in Manuscript, USA. We had a list of places where our drivers have been victims of armed robbery, frequent excessive complaints, card rejections, cards are run at the end of the night in some cases, so the shop ends up short after already delivering, harassment, or even occasionally places that just never tip drivers. Drivers essentially lose money if you are on the edge of delivery and don't tip. They'd make more if they refuse to deliver to you and did dishes instead. Delivery driving is the 5th most dangerous job in America. 37.9 drivers per 100,000 die job-related death. Police fatalities total 11.1 per 100,000. For a comparison point, I once came back from someone's porch to find a man stealing my car topper, and another occasion where a man was asking me to step inside after asking if I could break $100 for him on a $13 order. I've been led to a false address before with customers wanting me to wait or change location. Red flags as well. I even had a drunk man in his 50s decide the best way to tip me was to show me his sausage. This was before I even got out of my car. Delivered to this backroads area where I was attacked by 3 dogs as soon as I left my car. 3rd day on the job. climbed back in, and this redneck prick leaves his house laughing, saying, "Yeah, they'll jetcha if they don't know ya. I can't control 'em neither cause that big one don't like me. I mean, they ain't mine anyhow." He gave me a $2 tip to buy a pack of band-aids. Sorry for going off topic, but the point is that no delivery zones are both for financial security and employee safety. These companies protect themselves by requiring us to be unarmed, but most of us still carry weapons and a few of us have had to use them before, at least as a deterrent point. On the other hand, my driver friends and I have been offered free drugs several times as well. A danger in and of itself, but a pretty sweet gesture. Point: drivers risk themselves all day driving in bad weather, low light conditions, on unmarked roads, and risking robbery, kidnapping, or murder to bring you food while making a fraction of minimum wage. Please tip them. Point edit. Add sausage. Point edit 2. Rough job. 20 years I drove pizza in Norfolk, Virginia. We had a couple no-go spots, including some dimly lit single-story low-income housing projects. We delivered to other projects, but this one was blacked out because a driver had gotten shot in the head, survived, and sued the pizza chain over his substantial injuries and subsequent disability. I somehow got sent here anyway, early on, and had a slight scary walk through some badly lit buildings, but nothing bad happened. I learned that the phone person arranged a meeting at a nearby gas station, which was how we did that stuff. Point: we delivered to two colleges, Old Dominion University, which was wealthier and whiter, not to put too fine a point on it, and Norfolk State University, which was pretty much all black students. Anywhere at ODU was fair game, rooftop, basement, dark alley, anywhere, it was safe. Drivers had some run-ins with drunk students there, but nothing out of the ordinary. We had plenty of drunk customers outside of schools. NSU, though, we couldn't deliver to the dorms at all, and during the dinner hours and later, we had to deliver to the campus police station, which also appeared to be the center of social activity on campus. The rules relaxed during lunch. Never had any trouble there beyond regular student bullshit like "Mon pizza man, give me a slice," which I'd get at ODU. We did have a handful of other addresses, like one guy who kept giving the wrong address, one that didn't exist when you arrive, and then he'd angle for the late pizza discount when they'd call back to get the right address. This was the 1990s, so we couldn't look up addresses on the internet. I was the last guy to bring this guy a pizza. I called back from a payphone, and said there was no such address. They said bring it in, and by the time I arrived, they had blackballed him. I was trained early on to surrender the pizza and the money if I'm robbed, and I had my car burgled once in a badish neighborhood, and they got about $45. Oh well. That said, half the drivers were carrying guns. I love Virginia, and while they'd be the first to tell you to give up the money, none of them would hesitate to shoot to save their own lives. Don't fuck with the pizza guy, especially if you can't see both his hands. Nothing new got blacklisted while I was there, just some areas of town where people at nearby businesses had been robbed. As for special characters, Cowboy was a little odd, only cracked his door a little, but was talkative and nice otherwise. Very loud movers inside. Tried to touch female drivers' hands though, typically sent men there. Name was Cowboy because the system required a last name and he just went by Cowboy. Technically on the list for female drivers. Miss Karen, forgot name, using Karen, was a nice older woman, quite large, who refused to bathe after a foot injury. You're supposed to shower with your foot covered up in a bag or something. She decided to just use bleach instead, long after her foot healed. After she signed receipts they'd be terribly greasy, and she had a dark silhouette of herself on her bed. Her little apartment, affordable housing that was once a very nice hotel, was seemingly bright and clean otherwise. You could just smell it / her from far down the hall. Usually ordered drinks instead of big meals, since she didn't get out much. Almost on the list, because health hazard. Mr. Brown, on the far end of town, was drunk and usually passed out, half the time. The other half of the time he was pretty damn well fabulously cross-dressing. Silver Tina Turner dress, blonde wig, well done nails, high heels. See, when Mr. Brown wasn't Ms. Brown, he was just in a t-shirt, shorts, and sometimes still had on nail polish. Looked ready to go fishing, I guess. He grabbed food quickly, so I wouldn't see his hands. When cross-dressing, she was perfectly capable. Never let myself look surprised or put off so I wouldn't make him self-conscious. Close to being on the list because frequently waiting 15 minutes after getting there for his cat to wake his drunk ass up is no bueno. Family business, 28 years of me doing this. Open since 1977. We've seen some shit folks. Story time point: we have a whole apartment building and one half block on the FAQ list. Once we deliver and you don't answer, fine. Okay. I'll find someone on the street and sell it for 1/2 price. The second time you order and don't answer, you get on the list. In which case now your whole building is on the list. And I really don't mind telling them when they call as to why I won't deliver. Generally I tell them that room C14 faked it up for everyone and ask if they'll pick it up point. So these idiots not only stiffed me the first time, the second time they ate 30+/40 wings, 2/3 the combo pizza, and brought it back yelling at me about food poisoning. Come on. It's not that quick. Science. Please. It will be my pleasure to pay you your $32 back to never eat here again. Thanks for banning yourself. We also had situations where businesses would get on the FAQ list. Machinists are by far the worst. They'll call in for an order, generally large, and then never answer the goddamn buzzer or phone call. They will give you vague loading dock directions. Oh yeah, go down to the parking lot by the flag, it's the dock there. There's no flag and no dock. Don't you drive to work daily? How can you not tell my driver where to go? After the first $120 order I got stiffed with, "You are branded as pickup only." Point: the best is when they use their friend's phone to call us and place an order at their friend's apartment. I still know who you are, you dingus. You order the same sheet all the time. Congrats. If I get stiffed, your buddy's places goes no deliver. We also seem to have an issue with exact change no tip people and people trying to use WIC to pay. Oh no. And the exact change people, that's fine. But for some reason I keep hearing they are assholes. All my guys and gals know exactly who is on it and not. I know this will get buried, but what the heck. Back around 1985 or so I delivered pizzas for Domino's Pizza. This was back in the day of avoid the night, 30 minutes or less, or it's free. I was a young, blonde, better than average looking female back in the day when females did not deliver pizzas. If I could have gotten $1 from everyone who gasped, "You're a girl," I'd be rich right now. I worked with a great team of guys, only gave away less than 5 pizzas in my 3-year career, and made a lot of money in tips. This 5 feet 7 inches, 110 pounds, white girl delivered pizzas in Chicago, Illinois. We had a large delivery area, but there was one area where I was not allowed to deliver pizzas. It was end of 47th Street, the dividing line between the nice neighborhood and the ghetto. One day we were extremely busy, so much so that we called in an extra manager from another store so that our manager could help with delivering pizzas. I had just come in from a run when the temporary manager tells me to take the next run, a run that happens to be north of 47th Street. I proceed to tell him that I can't do that, it's against policy, blah blah blah. He then orders me to deliver the pizza or go home. I had a full-time job and this pizza delivery job was just a side gig, but I needed the money, so I took the delivery. I had just enough money on me to break a $10 and made my way to the address. I got there in less than 30 minutes, shut off the car, grabbed my keys, got out with the order, and locked the doors. It was a warm weekend afternoon and everybody was out and about. I walked past a parked Chicago squad and made my way to the front door to make my delivery. It all went well. The people who placed the order were very nice and tipped well. I simply ignored those. I could not ignore the police officer who stopped me on the way back to my car. He began to tell me that the minute I stepped out of my car his partner's jaw dropped to her chest. His partner was a black female. He asked me why I was there delivering pizzas and I explained the situation to him, letting him know that if I didn't make that delivery I would have been fired. Needless to say, I had a police escort all the way back to the store. By then the regular manager was back, as were a couple of the delivery guys. The police officer ripped the manager a new one and advised him that if he ever sees me delivering in that area again, there will be repercussions. The officers left, and the real store manager, along with the guys, gave the temporary manager a ton of shit. The temporary manager explained that I was complaining about making the delivery and he ignored my complaint because I complained about everything. Lol. The guys all told him that that was my job. From that day forward, that officer did stop by from time to time just to make sure that they were no sending me north of 47th Street. I used to deliver pizza a few years ago. We got a call to deliver a pizza to a very wealthy neighborhood in our college town. So, I grab an order and get to the house pretty quickly. It was Friday or Saturday night, so we were pretty busy. When I got to the house, lights were dimmed, so I barely see the house near. I ring the doorbell and two teenagers, around 13 to 15 YO, open the door. Obviously they were having a party while the folks were gone. So they pay me, but didn't leave a tip. So it was a bit disappointing to me, but nothing unusual. When I got back to store, I grabbed the money out of the pocket and right away felt suspicious. One of the bills, $5, was a fake one they paid with. I have their phone near from a receipt, so manager tells me to call them. I call them back, explain the situation. They got scared and promised to come to store to pay for pizza. Of course they didn't show up, since it was super late. Manager told me it was up to me what I wanted to do with this situation, call the cops or go back, but said he will not charge me those $5. Even though I was furious and pissed off, rich kids pay with a fake bill that they just printed. I never called the cops on them because I believe the consequences would be normal. They were too young to be charged with a federal crime. I know they were sorry. When I called them back, I could hear they got really scared by the tone of their voice. That was enough for me not to call any police. Though my manager told me he blacklisted that phone near they called from. Now only parents can call. Nobody else know what happened except me, and I don't work there anymore. Manager and those two little punks. Hope they learned point, man. I was mad that night though. Because I'm a male with long hair, I apparently automatically love weed. I delivered to a guy who seemed normal until I get back to the store and find out he called. He told my boss that his food smelled like weed and that he wasn't going to serve weed lassane to his kids. He came up to the store and started making a huge fuss and demanding I be fired and arrested. Meanwhile the other drivers and I are standing there giggling and whispering to ourselves about how stupid he looks. This is when the bomb blew up. He storms towards me and attempts to grab me, screaming literal nonsense. Verbatim, it sounds like Jeff Ugflea. That's when good old Lavente, one of the drivers, whips out his flashlight/taser and gives this man a good shock to the forehead. He drops to the floor and the cops are called. They look at our footage. Luckily we have cameras surrounding the front desk because my boss thought a counter worker was stealing money and deemed that Lavente had acted in self-defense. The man was escorted out, still screaming, and isn't heard from for a while. Weeks later, I'm out and about and notice a truck had been following me through neighborhoods, so I test him. I went around about 3 times, all the while the truck still following. My next reaction is to drive over to the police station. This got him off my tail. I look in his direction as I get out and sure enough, it's his bald ass. I tried to get his license plate, but it was too dark to see it. It's been 2 years and we haven't heard from him since, but every time a red Tacoma is behind me, I get a little freaked out. I worked for an independent pizza delivery place as a teenager. After about a year I was able to mentally organize the deliveries based on location, so it was as efficient as possible. I also had a mental blacklist. The normal run was 5 to 10 pizzas. The non-tippers I would put at the bottom of the stack no matter what, so the pizza would arrive cold and soggy. We never did anything shady like spit or put a pube on the pizzas, but I would make sure the toppings and cheese slid off, etc. Since it was an independent restaurant, management sided with me. Prior to that, at the age of 16 I worked at Little Caesars, not as a delivery guy. I saw some sick shit there. Spitting and jacking off on pizzas, pubes on pizzas, balls on pizzas, snot rockets on pizzas, and all other kinds of weird shit. I guess the lesson learned is twofold. You should order from your local pizza places, as usually the management is the owner's son etc. and they give a shit. And you should never order from a chain. Nobody cares. Trust me, point pizza delivery for a mom and pop shop was the best job I ever had in terms of enjoyment and money. I was 17 and would take home 300 cash on average every night. Point smoke weed, drink beers, hell I even did it on mushrooms. It paid all my living expenses my first year of college. Point and 37 now unsuccessful, but when I'm back in town I still stop in, and the same keen office are working there. Point that's the great thing about family businesses and you should support and tip them. A man and his brother lived across the hall from each other in the upstairs part of an apartment complex. Mind you, this was a very small and very rundown apartment, so the upstairs only had these two unmarked doors as the only two apartments. Think of it as a two-story duplex, quadplex, I suppose. Point anyway, the two brothers both ordered from Domino's at the exact same time, but one order took longer than the other, so it was sent out as a separate triple run, making him one of 3 total orders in my car. Had to go to 2 other houses after his to take out. I was sent on this run, while my co-worker, Arthur, a 40-plus-year-old man who takes this summer job to have fun money while he's not teaching middle school, no idea why he did this, nobody really ever asked him, is told to run one for the other brother. We'll call my brother's order D1 and Arthur's brother's order C2. I arrive at D1's apartment, hand him his boxes, and quickly leave to go deliver my other 2 orders. While I'm doing this, Arthur must have delivered C2's order, because as I was on my way back to Domino's, I got a call from my manager. She told me that D1 got the wrong order, and I had to go back and get it before I got to the store. The fun starts here. Point I get back to D1's place to see Arthur here. I thought you already got here a while ago, why are you back? I asked. Arthur says, well, a brap manager called and said to go back. I had the wrong order. Turns out the ovens guy swapped D1's and C2's orders by mistake, as he probably saw the nearly identical address and messed up the label. Point so we figured this part out pretty easily. We thought we'll just talk to them both, tell them the mistake, and they can just swap the boxes and be fine. Nope, these motherfuckers wanted coupons, free deals, nearly anything they could possibly get their hands on for our simple mistake. Arthur and I are not equipped to hand out such things in our condition, and I'm about an hour on the road in the clock at this point, so I really needed to get back to the store, so we wouldn't look so bad to corporate. I told them this, and they started to get very angry, almost violent, at Arthur and I. So we just kinda slowly backed out, and ran down the stairs to our cars, at which point C2 yells out his window, if you don't come back with our sheet, we will blow your motherfucking heads off. On that note, we sped off back to the store and told Abra everything. Upon further research, it turned out that this was the 3rd time this has happened with D1 and C2, and we had a very good hunch that they had a system of ordering at the same time, acting like it's not what they ordered to try and get a free pizza. Because that's what our GM did. Any fuck up got a free weed on us. The only problem is that this time they went a little too far, threatening a life over pizza. So Abra decided that we would stay put and watch the store, and she would go and deliver the redos. To our surprise, she was back about as quick as she left, said it was really easy. They didn't say shit when they saw me. She's an intimidating looking woman. We decided that they had gotten away with it enough, and since they threatened to kill us, we would blacklist their numbers forever, which is essentially just a list that makes it to where our computer tells us to not take their order if they call last or point ELDR to brothers, purposely order each other's order, cause a riot for free redo pizza, threatened our life over it. We said fuck that, banned. I currently am a delivery driver, and about a year ago I delivered to an average area of town that turned out to be one of my worst deliveries ever. The order was to be paid via debit, and when I got to the porch there was a mid-teens Native American waiting for me. As I walked up the stairs that led to the porch, this girl ran up to her apartment and came down with a much bigger and absolutely hammered Native American. I mean like 6 feet 8 plus, and probably well over 300 lbs. So he's searching through his overalls that are only held on by one shoulder strap for his debit card, and gets frustrated when he notices he doesn't have it and asks me to come upstairs where there's better light. So with dog mace in my back pocket, bear spray probably would have been required, I follow this guy and girl up to the apartment. Grossest faking thing I've ever seen. pots of moldy soup everywhere. Like the sheer number of pots they had was absolutely mind-blowing. The air smelled like fresh spray paint, which I can taste because the walls were absolutely covered in it. Workout equipment everywhere. Pretty sure people were shooting up 10 feet away in the living room. Anyways, he can't find his card and now starts blaming this teenage girl for taking it, and everything starts to get pretty heated. She tells him 2 of his friends found him drunk laying on the street an hour ago and they dragged him home or something, and that they probably took it. Now he's telling me to give him the pizza for free and that the next time they order to add the price total on this order to it. Well, realistically I don't want to get fired, so I told him that I can probably do that, just let me work it out with my manager. He complies with hesitation and I walk downstairs with the teenage girl to get better service on my cell phone. As we're walking down these stairs, she starts like coming onto me, abruptly started like touching me and telling me that if I give her the pizza now and took her number, she'll pay me tomorrow with money or whatever I want. I was so fucking weirded out I basically ignored it and jumped the last few steps off the stairs and finally called my boss. We'll call him Kurt and him Jason. This is exactly how that conversation went. Point me, Kurt, it's Jason. I'm on order #66 to Jane Road. Basically I'm scared for my life right now. This drunk guy can't find his debit or cash and he's getting aggressive. This teenage girl that lives with him is offering me search for the pizza. He really wants this pizza. I'm going to give him the pizza and explain more when I get back. Point Kurt. Okay. Point so I gave the girl the pizza and she asked me for my number, but I said I have a girlfriend and thanks for the offer. I booked it the fuck out to there. Explained more in depth to my boss when I got back and he ended up blacklisting them. Probably the worst shift I've ever worked. It was surreal, although that may have been the spray paint fumes faking with me. Point TLDR. Delivered to a big drunk Native American, couldn't find money, blamed and confronted female teenager. I told them I may be able to do something. Female teenager offers other methods of payment. I give them pizza. Peel the fuck out. I used to be a manager as a kid, 18-year-old. Once a guy tried to sue us because we refused to make him a salad. We have no salad on our menu and no sheet. That could be misconstrued as healthy. Point his best friend was a lawyer and asked us if we would just throw some toppings in a bowl and charge him the same as a pizza just to shut him up. I told him he could buy a supreme pizza, pick the toppings off at his leisure, but that we would not accommodate such a request as it violated health codes and wasn't on the menu. He was the reason we actually started to refuse people service. Before there was a not enforced 3-strike system. Point another was this poor woman who was beyond morbidly obese. She was like that thing in the basement in the movie Blade. She'd always order 4 large pizzas, 20 to 40 wings and a 2-liter of Diet Coke. The reason we stopped ordering was because of the smell. 2 guys actually threw up after delivering to her right outside her door. They said it was like a physical wave that knocked you back and that it was difficult to breathe and keep their eyes open once they entered the place. We had to give them the night off. I hike. Point. That brings me to my next point. The door was always ajar or unlocked because the woman was confined to her bed, which was in the living room of her place at an assisted living home. She couldn't stand/walk. The last time she tried, she had broken her ankle. She a pneumatic bed to lift her into an upright position and blankets to cover her. This poor woman actually had an anatracheal intubation done on her, so I later wondered how she ate so much. The tube was so that she would get airflow because her own neck would weigh down on her throat and cut off her breathing. I've smelled many things in my life and grew up in/around medicine, so when I say that she smelled worse than a rotting corpse, please believe that I know what I'm talking about. I've no idea what it could be, but I later learned that she has a team of nurses, one who I later dated, which is how I learned all this, that come in every hour to manage waste, and the same team to come every day to bath her. That nurse of hers that I dated for a few months said she had a few decubitus ulcers and that was the cause of the smell, along with her own sweat, sheet, and urine. Point TLDR. Alpha guy wanted a salad when we didn't serve salads, tried to sue, told him to pick the topping off a pizza if that's all he wanted. Point TLDR. Beta banned our house because the fumes from a fatally obese woman and her place were too noxious for my drivers to handle. About 4 years ago, I moved to Las Vegas to attend UNLV and couldn't find work. I ended up finding an under-the-table gig at a local pizza shop about 2 miles east of the Strip, sketchy area for those unaware. Unfortunately, we essentially had the opposite of a no delivery list point. The owner would have plainclothes people place ads on door handles in the hotels, even though you obviously cannot do this, and then we'd get orders from people staying in the hotels. I didn't really know that he was advertising like this and, stupidly, agreed to do a few hotel deliveries. The first time, I had to park in the fire lane out front of the Excalibur and run inside to meet this guy's shitty time expectations. The second time, I had to deliver to the Imperial Palace. Little to my knowledge, the Imperial Palace had banned our specific pizza place. I was spotted by security fairly quickly, held/questioned, photographed, and told to never come back. Fun. I drove back, gave the guy all the cash I had from the day, and quit. And as for sketchy deliveries, there were many weird ones, but I remember one distinctly. It was a one-building type of apartment, and was about as dumpy as they come. I went up the stairs. Most doors were open with fans, because they appeared to lack air in the faking desert, and found the unit. Door open, fan on full blast, no furniture inside, but a plain mattress on the floor in the back. 2 half-naked chicks on the mattress and a large black dude, white wife beater, gold chain, and all comes to the door. He is actually really nice, pulls out what can only be described as a wad of literally dozens of hundreds, and gives me $100 for like $30 in food. I've been delivering pizzas for a little over a year, on and off. This is my favorite story point. So I get to the house and I see a note on the door: delivery girl, I'm doing some cleaning and might not hear the bell. Just come inside. Now, we are definitely not supposed to go inside customers' houses, but I can't say I've ever refused, especially if it's just a little old lady who wants me to set her pizzas on the counter. At this point my red flags should have been going off, but I'm a very trusting, gullible person, so I just walked on. I walk into a dark house with the distant sound of a vacuum. Okay, at least the cleaning part is true. I say loudly, hello, this is Mola with your pizza. And the vacuuming ceases. Still no red flags at this point. Out walks a large black man in his boxers. I'm still not weirded out. People answer the door in their underwear quite a bit. Pretty uneventful. He pays for the pizza and I go back to the shop. Upon my return, I find out this dude was supposed to be blacklisted. Apparently, the last time someone delivered there, a sweet little 30-something mom, dude man answered the door, dick swinging. And that's how I almost saw business on the job. Almost. I kind of wish I had edit. How he knew I was a girl, I do not know. My real life name is a mostly male name. Oh, so many stories. Abandoned apartment complex that made the local news for being a place that people would deal drugs and set up delivery guys to get robbed. New manager who had a felony coke trafficking charge said he knew a guy over there, so it would be okay to deliver. Took a delivery there and didn't even pull into the lot. As I pulled up, about 5 guys came out through a smashed sliding porch door. Just took off, never to go back. Accidentally passed the house I was supposed to deliver to, so I parked in front of the neighbor's house. Deliver pizza no problem. Get back in my car, and as my headlights turn on I see the neighbor come out with a shotgun in one hand and a Rottweiler on a leash in the other. Don't know if he was just checking me out or looking to rob me. Delivery guy at a different store was assaulted by a guy with a machete through the screen door. It was a house I had delivered to before. There was a guy who was known as the lunchbox thief. He would go into pizza shops when drivers would leave late at night, as there would usually be only 1 or 2 people in the shop. He would place a lunchbox on the counter, tap it with a pistol, and take the money from the register, staying silent the whole time. Had a police officer come into our shop showing us video from his other exploits. We never got hit, but a Papa John's a few blocks away did. Went to a new neighborhood that was previously not in our delivery area as it was way too sketchy. Manager was looking to boost sales. Really tight street with cars parked on both sides, so I was driving real slow, looming for the house. Dudes are standing along the road clearly dealing drugs. Guy walks up. Yo, what you need? White bread. I say I'm good. You could be doing better, dude. China white, rocks, buds. I got it. Well, I'm looking for delivery address. She dude, that's my mom's place just right up the way. All in all, he was the friendliest dealer I ever met and was super helpful. My store wouldn't ban anyone cause the owner was super greedy, but there were a few awful people. There were several people who would call the same time every week and would always call and say their pizza was wrong after it had been delivered and never tip. There was one guy who in particular I hated. He lived outside our delivery radius, but I got his first ever order and didn't realize, and after that we had to keep delivering on principle or something, and I got stuck delivering it. But he ordered the same thing every Saturday afternoon like clockwork, and it was like a 20-minute drive one way, but it would always take more than 30 minutes cause of Saturday afternoon traffic. Anyway, this guy lived in a basement apartment that always reeked of shit, and he would demand exact change, and I mean down to the penny, and never tip a cent, while I'd burn $10 in gas. And when I got back to the restaurant, his remade order would be ready to go as he'd have called and complained while I was on my way back, so out I'd go again. I started losing out on some tips cause not many people ordered from that direction, so while I was bringing either of his orders, the other drivers got all the other deliveries. Well, after about a month and a half or so, I got tired of it, and when he called I gave him shit and told him he shouldn't fuck with the people who make his food and hung up. So he calls back a minute later all passed off and wants to talk to the manager. So I say I'm the manager and he bridges me out. So I informed him that was banned and never to call again, and son of a bitch, it worked. After that I went back to getting those lucrative Saturday afternoon deliveries. Also delivering during a snowstorm, I took a delivery up a road which stopped being plowed part way up. Luckily I drove a lifted jeep, so driving through 1 to 2 feet of snow wasn't the end of the world, but when I got to his house I had to climb over a frozen mound of snow to get to his door. When he answered the door he says, "Wow, it's coming down hard, I never would have gotten out in this," and I just wanted to fucking slap him. While I'm not on the no delivery list for any pizza places in town, thank God I love pizza, I do have a story that I think this thread would appreciate. So there is this pizza shop on the other side of town owned by a lovely Asian family. Now, this is Southern Ontario by the University of Waterloo for a frame of reference to anyone wondering. They make the best pizza with the best 2 large pizza delivery deal. As well, it also seems to always be the same really nice older gentleman who delivers a pizza to us, and it's always super quick and delicious, which is why I feel bad about what we ended up doing one night. So the 4 of us collect all the money for the pizza, about $7 each, and get it together. No problem, right? See, the problem is that I'm the only person they're paying with cash. Except for a couple towenes, the entire order is comprised of coins, and the greatest denomination of which is a quarter. So to put this into perspective, we've got flash ready, pizza ordered, and we have close to $30 collected on an order. That comes to something around $24 with tax, and it's basically going to be paid to this nice gentleman standing outside in the close to -30 Celsius, -22 Fahrenheit according to Google. With wind chill weather, I couldn't imagine making him wait outside while he counted out all my roommates' change while we have already taken the pizza inside to make sure it stays warm. So I do the only thing I can think of, put it in something for him. Now the bitters, the only thing I have to give him is a mason jar. So I basically walk up to this man, get the pizza and hand him a mason jar filled with some 30 Canadian dollars. All in quarters and dimes. I feel so terrible that he had to count out all of that, but I did make sure to give him a good tip, of course, and chastise my roommate, the quarter bandit as he shall now be called by me at least once, for his possession of so many goddamned quarters and many attempts to pawn them off on me for things he owes me money for in massive handfuls. Also, Jack, if you are reading this, fuck your quarters, haha TLDR. Paid a nice older delivery man $30 worth of quarters and dimes all in a mason jar without it being counted, so he wouldn't have to stand out in the -30 Celsius, -22 Fahrenheit, Canadian winter. Yes, we basically mark them on the computer. For people that don't tip, or tip like less than $1, we tell them next time they call that 15% gratuity is included, and we add it to the total, and tell them on the phone. No one has ever cancelled or questioned it so far. After about a year or so, there are a few houses in particular that I know we do not deliver to anymore. First one is some sheethead who was complaining about that no internet computers keep his credit card info on file and wanted us to delete it after every order. Having the info preset and verifying the last 4 digits saves tons of time in mistakes and cheat. LPT, just pay cash if you want your food faster. So my boss, who isn't great at English, is trying to explain that Amazon would keep his card info etc. This guy then wrote a really nasty review on the bully site Yelp, which is still displayed, and my boss just blacklisted him. He memorized the guy's number and address, even if he tries to call and order to somewhere else or from another phone. It's funny, when we blacklist people we just tell them it's too far, sorry, and no one ever really questions it. Except the other time was from some sheetheads who ordered a bunch of food and called up way too early claiming it was food poisoning and demanded their money back. Takes like at least 5 to 8 hours Ike. Then the very next day they called for another delivery. What the fuck? If the place was unsanitary and made you sick, why? Side note, my dad used to run a restaurant and told me a similar story about an Indian family. Came in and ordered a ton of food. Called in like an hour later claiming they were all sick and wanted vouchers. My dad was just like, well, what did you eat earlier because science, and explained how it all works. And also said why would he want coupons for food that injured his family? The guy hung up really angry and threatening. People are so dumb. So these guys tried to order, and I saw the marks in the computer, which are vague, and asked my boss and he just told me to say the line, sorry it's too far. And the guy wised up and said he just got delivered to the other day. I said hang on, ask my boss what to say, he just told me to say it again. So I do, and the guy's like wanting to speak to manager. I say hang on, and tell my boss. My boss is like no. And I get back on the phone, like yeah he left on errand or something. Obviously the guy knows we're full of shit, but he doesn't get that even if he wins. Does he actually want food from someone who doesn't want to sell to you? So he goes for the last ditch effort. In our computer we can see previous order, date, and total orders from that person. Which for this guy was a big order, and over like 100 orders. He then switches tone, like okay, buddy. We've been a long time customer. It really sucks that we won't be able to do business anymore. I'm really disappointed. And hangs up. About 5 minutes later same guy calls back, from a different number. However, I hear the same sheetheads talking and partying in background and I immediately say hold PLZ. I tell my boss that I'm pretty sure it's the same dude. He tells me to just proceed as if it weren't. So I'm doing the whole order and I ask his address. He just put the address to the neighbor's house. I lolled on the phone and said hold on. I tell my boss and he tells me to give the line sorry it's too far. Mind you, this line is pure bullshit as we often deliver well past it and sometimes even ignore our maximum radius. If it's a really big order or person offers big tip etc. The guy gets all upset again and says he's pretty sure he's in range etc. I just tell him we don't deliver that area anymore and hang up. There's a bunch of people that call up and order drunk and are terrible to deal with at the door or on the phone. They are either dumb or on drugs and they say shit like I want takeout, and then you ask if they want to go or delivery and they just say takeout again and then get all uppity and act like I'm an idiot and I explain that most customers say pick up or delivery. In Buffalo, I went to my friend's house over the weekend, but I ended up stuck there because the weather got crazy since it got really cold and there was at least a foot of snow. My friends decided to order pizza, which I was really surprised that any place had the audacity to deliver in this kind of weather. I had eaten before, so I wasn't going to eat any of the pizza. When I saw the car stop in front of the house, I told my friend that the pizza is here, and the guy came out and knocked on the front door, but we never use that front door to get in. My friend literally went to the window to tell him to go to the back, and this guy was in short sleeves. For hell's sake, the door is right there, just give it the cash there. He paid $16, which was the pie exactly with no tip. The guy stood there expecting something, and he's like really? No tip? The rudest thing I've ever seen preceded. My friend says nope, and closes the door. I was literally in awe. I told him what the fuck? You're really not tipping him? He told me nope, I'm poor. I asked him if he was literally freaking autistic to just let something like that happen. At that point, I felt so guilt-tripped that I ran outside and to give him a $10 bill as he was about to go inside his car. He seemed really ticked off, but he told me I was about to put you guys on the asshole list. I told him you should, because I didn't even live with them, that what he was doing was the work of a saint. He said thanks with a smile and left. TBH, I'm not sure if they even got put on the no delivery list. I used to deliver chicken in a pretty wealthy area with lots of gated communities. One night I go out to deliver and spend 15 minutes at the gate waiting for the guy to let me in before leaving to take the rest of the deliveries, then heading back to the shop. Point I get back and my coworker is on the phone with the guy saying was outside having a cigarette and that I should come deliver the chicken now. So I go back, get to the gate, and again, no response. I call from the gate and from my cell phone about 10 times and no one picks up. So I head back to the shop. I had delivered my other orders before attempting to redeliver to this guy again. I get back to the shop and once again my coworker is on the phone with the guy again, saying he was in the pool and didn't hear. I take the phone from my coworker and he pleads with me to deliver, but when I'm listening to him, I can tell that this guy's a bit off. I wasn't sure what he was on, but he was on something. So I head back over one more time, and guess what? No answer at the gate, again. So I call another home in the community from the gate, apologize and explain the situation, and they let me in. I get to this guy's house and he's sitting in his driveway, in boxer shorts and nothing else, smoking a faking pookie. I walk up and try to hand him the food, and he calls for his daughter, who comes walking out, pays cash, and apologizes, and takes him inside. After that night I created a do not deliver list and put him at the top. We ended up adding a couple more names to the list while I worked there, mostly just run-of-the-mill asshole customers, and one who always called using one of those text-to-speech machines and would always pretend to be ordering a banquet then cancel at the end. I'm a little late to this question, but I had to chime in. I had a regular customer for about 3 years. Obviously gay, it will be important later, but whatever. I started to get the feeling that he was attracted to me about a month in. Still no big deal, kind of flattering really. We had brief discussions here and there. He stayed in a hotel on the weekends to be closer to his mom, who was in poor health. Like I said, I had been delivering to him regularly for about 3 years and had no reason to enter his room while he got the money and chat a bit if we were slow. One night I took a seat on the bed and talked to him for a few minutes and he put this hand on my leg. This is where I explained to him that I was straight, which I figured he already knew since I talked about my ex-wife and a few girls I had been with from work. A few weeks later he ordered and I continued to interact with him as I had done numerous times before, and this time he tried to grab my crotch. That's where the story ends. At least that's what my co-workers think. I delivered to him one more time. On my birthday. This is where it changes from creepy to flat out illegal. This time he ordered right at close. If we get a delivery at close, quite often the driver will cash out, pay for the order themselves, and whatever the customer gives us at payment we keep and go home. That's what I did this night. During our chat that night I mentioned that is what I did, and was on my way home. Hearing this for some reason brought out the rapist in him. Now he did not rap me, but he did force a blue job on me. This was a very awkward situation for me, and I didn't know what to do. In retrospect I see a few options, but my brain didn't work while this was happening. He tried to order again a few weeks later. I refused and called my DM and explained what happened. He is no longer allowed to order. Damn. I know I'm late to the party, but I live in a college town, and at my pizza restaurant we recently blacklisted an Ivy League college. They placed an order for 2 separate sports teams. One for delivery on one day, the other for pickup on the next day. The first order was around $400. Big, but not something we didn't regularly do at least 2 or 3 times a week, so we could handle it. The order was, I shit you not, 1.5 minutes late. The lady was on the phone with me at 6:31 going Super Saiyan about her order and how she's not going to be ordering from us ever again, etc. I tried my best to assure her the order should be there extremely soon, and as I'm on the phone with her the driver gets there and she just says, well he's here, and hangs up. She gave a $5 tip to our driver for a $400 order. The very next day, they had placed an order for pickup for way more than that, almost 50 pizzas. Easily a $900 order, and that was with a courtesy discount. No faking call, no faking show, and they were going to pay for it on arrival. I have never seen the owner that upset. He just walked into his office and left when he figured out they weren't coming, and didn't say anything. Made all those pizzas myself with 3 other guys for no reason. We don't accept their orders anymore. Fact them. Also, there's a crazy lady who always tries to get our delivery drivers to learn about the Bible and talk to her dogs, and will lock the door behind them with a key. We don't go there anymore. My road was on the no delivery list for a month after this happened. I copied it from a news article. A teenager who went on a knife-wielding robbery rampage was today starting a 6.5-year sentence behind bars. Lee Petite carried out 4 robberies in just 3 days, and his spree only came to an end when armed police cornered him during an extensive search in the Bankfields area of Eston. The 18-year-old was sentenced at Teesside Crown Court yesterday after pleading guilty to 2 robberies, an attempted robbery, aggravated burglary with a knife, possession of a knife, 2 offenses of possessing an offensive weapon, and possession of a firearm in a public place. Judge Michael Taylor told Petite that he had left his victims terrified out of their wits. The first robbery took place on May 9th. Petite had set a trap to rob a pizza delivery driver in Bankfields by phoning in an order and lurking in the street with a kitchen knife. Petite demanded, "Give me your money," but the terrified driver ran off. Petite got only the 2 pizzas he had ordered. The next day he went into the Tesco Express store in Normanby at 10:20 p.m. with a 10-inch kitchen knife. He screamed at a man and woman working there, saying, "Open your tills." He was given £400 and CCTV recorded him fleeing into the street. The next morning at 6:50 am he was outside the Sainsbury's local shop in Bankfields waiting for it to open, said prosecutor Christopher O'Toole. Petite, of Sedgemoor Road, Middlesbrough, had a large kitchen knife in his right hand and said, "Give me the money." The owner pressed the panic button, telling him that the police were on the way, and he ran off. Just over an hour later, Irene Hutchinson was in her home in nearby Willow Drive when she saw the shadow of Petite outside. He was holding a large kitchen knife and he said, "Don't call the police, they're after me." He left when he failed to get inside. Mr. O'Toole said police found knife marks on the door where Petite had tried to jemmy it open. He had also stolen and part-eaten some ice cream from the garage. Police arrested him later that day after he was tracked down by the force's helicopter. The court heard that he walked towards an officer brandishing a kitchen knife after ignoring an order to stop. But when the police unit emerged armed with their weapons, he put the knife down on the ground. Petite then led officers to a wood near Normanby Hall where he had hidden an air rifle. Graham Brown, defending, said his actions had been driven by homelessness, drugs, and drink. He said that Petite accepted that he had caused psychological harm to his victims, but he had not physically injured anybody. DC Lindsay Forbes, of Red Car and Cleveland CID, said after the case, "The sentence today shows the severity of the crimes carried out by Petite. He is a prolific offender and a dangerous man. I hope that the sentence gives him time to reflect upon his actions, and I also hope that the victims can now move forward from their traumatic experiences, safe in the knowledge that Petite is behind bars." We always tried to avoid actually banning people. We'd just have notes about what shitty thing they did. One guy would always order 1 pepperoni and 1 half pep/half anchovy. Then he'd try to say he ordered 1 pep, 1 anchovy and demand the pizza's free. We had a note that a driver had to take his order and deliver it themselves. I got the guy and he pulled the game on me, so I stared him dead in the eye and said, "I'm the same girl who took your order," and he just backed right off. It's like no one had ever thought to just stand up to him or something, because the other drivers acted amazed. We had one dick who should have been on the no deliver list. His house was only technically within our limits, but he was like 20 minutes away in the middle of nowhere, and he would tip like $1. Fuck that guy. Everyone hated him. My friend's parents had a lot of notes on their account too. His mom was batshit crazy, took a lot of lithium. It was noted that she'd forget she already redeemed her free pizza she earned one time, and try to get free shit all the time. I do believe that she literally forgot she already redeemed it months and months after the fact. But she was the kind of person who'd make a scene and was never wrong. I dated her son, and at one point he got it in his head he wanted to marry me, and I'm real glad she's not my mother-in-law. I used to deliver pizzas when I was younger, and we only had one house that we wouldn't deliver to in our entire area. On one fateful night I ended up delivering to this house. I delivered to this house plenty of times. The guy was a little weird, but normally he'd just compliment me on my car or comment on whatever color I had my hair dyed that week. But tonight something seemed off. I thought he was completely nude, but it was hard to tell by the dim light on his doorstep. I didn't want to look down to confirm my suspicion, so I just played it cool and went about the transaction as I normally would. He said he needed to go back inside to get the money and walked away. That's when I noticed his bare ass cheeks. He came back to the door, his junk dangling in the breeze. He paid for his pizza. I handed him the box and his change, then turned to walk away. As I turned he asked, "Don't you want a tip?" As I turned back around he asked, "Do you think you'd want to come back later?" I said nope, quickly snatched the dollar, and walked briskly to my car. I got back to the store and told our general manager what had happened. He said that a couple of the other guys had complained, but it wasn't anything quite as bad. After that we stopped delivery to the house. I know this is super late and will be buried. Also, I wasn't a delivery guy, but it involves blacklisting an area. I worked for an installment loan company for about a month. This was a small company with about 10 stores across the state, and I was the only person at my store. When I was hired, my area manager, who wasn't from the town, explained that if a customer was to stop on their loan, I was to go to their house to attempt to collect either the money or the collateral. When I asked if I was allowed to carry my gun because the employee handbook didn't mention it, she was very confused. One day she was in my store and wanted to do house calls on some of our bad debt. A lot of them were in a place the locals call Walker Town, an area at the edge of town that is our ghetto where a lot of people get stabbed all the time. I tried to explain to her what this area is and that it was the primary reason I asked to carry my gun, but she just didn't quite seem to understand. So we get a list and plan our route. As I pull up to Walker Town, several trailer parks right around each other, largely busted up / burned / abandoned. Her eyes were dinner plates and the only thing out of her mouth was, "Did you bring it?" When I told her of course, she didn't seem to relax much. She chose to talk to the people in the first house. She was there for a few minutes talking, and when she got back in the car she said we were done and could go back to the office. A couple days later she was talking to the manager of another loan company in town about some shared customers when the other person explained to her that nobody from that company even goes near Walker Town. After that she finally understood and said we could skip that area. I worked for a place in South Georgia that rhymes with pizza slushed. I worked there for 4 years during college, which was an insane experience because of crazy customers, plus I'd usually be stoned for my entire shift, which makes everything interesting. So one strange winter night it began to snow pretty hard, which makes everyone in the South lose their minds. Our phones were blowing up, but one of our drivers slid into a ditch, so the manager said if any driver didn't want to drive then they didn't have to. I'm from Illinois and drove a Jeep, so I kept delivering. The only other driver who kept driving was my buddy. We were getting fat tips all night, and the roads were mostly empty, so I was drifting all over the place, smoking joints on my runs, and collecting snow off my windshield while driving, making snowballs and nailing people out walking around. I ended up making over $300 in tips. My coworker had a less fun night. On one delivery to a sketchy apartment complex he got out to make a delivery and started getting mailed with snowballs. He yelled at the group of guys to stop, but the South plus SNOW equals FAKING stupid, so the group of 6 dudes decide to beat the shit out of him, breaking both of his orbitals, several ribs, fractured his arm, and put him in the hospital. The worst part was when he tried to get workman's comp to pay for his hospital bill that he said he shouldn't have gotten out of his vehicle and refused to pay. He was a chill guy, but he told the person on the phone, "Well, that's faked up." They then turned the recorded conversation over to Pizza Sludged Corporate and they fired my friend for inappropriate language. Bonus story, I had a guy who clearly had an operating meth lab in his trailer pull a knife on me when I knocked on his door to deliver his pizza. I jumped off his porch and yelled that I'm delivering the pizza he ordered, and he took a minute to process that. I'm preparing to get a knife thrown at me, and he switches from scary to smiling in a split second and goes inside. He comes back with a wad of money and no knife, so I put the pizzas on a little table on his porch. He hands me the money, and I didn't count it, or ask if he needed change, or really say much of anything. I casually backed to my car, got the hell out of there, and smoked a much needed cigarette on my way back to the store. I ended up with a $15 tip. You can turn your back on a person, but never turn your back on a drug, especially when it's waving a razor-sharp hunting knife in your eye. Hunter S. Thompson. I told managers in corporate about so many sketchy incidents. Nude men, what the fuck guys, people that would try to not pay every time they got a delivery, drug addicts, and even our own drivers getting robbed or beaten wouldn't cause our store to blacklist anywhere except one road. I never delivered in a big city, but I delivered to some projects a lot, and believe me when I say I'd rather get mugged in a place where there's some support versus a dark trailer 5 miles off a dark road where no one is gonna save your ass. Anyways, all of you drivers stay safe out there. For every 1,000 normal people, there's one faking lunatic, so stay on your toes. So happy when I saw this. It's been 2 years since I've worked at a pizza place, but I was the general manager of a Papa John's for 3 years, and one customer named Francis would order every Friday night 5 minutes before closing, and put 20 ounces Pepsis in the order, which was overlooked for weeks on end, until we realized what was going on. Long story short, I called his home multiple times and his dad was furious. Edit. Francis lived in the furthest town from the store that we delivered to, and on average would take 35 minutes there and back. Francis would always complain about not receiving his excessive amounts of 20 ounces peepers, and would force my driver to come back to the store, fill a bag with most of our 20 ounces Pepsis, and go back to his house. On Fridays we would close at 12. And because of Francis we wouldn't be leaving until 1:15, 1:30. We would have to cook his pizzas. The last straw came one night when I called Francis to inform him we were all out of 20 ounces Pepsis. I did the math, it equated to around 2 LTRs, and I offered them to him. He declined and hung up. It was an obvious troll, and this was not our first time communicating. He asked me for the number to John, who was the owner and a good friend of mine, and when I gave him his number he said no, Papa John. I realized what was going on and said, oh, it's 1-800 kiss my ass, and he said he'd have my job over this. I laughed and never delivered the sodas. Next day called the boss to inform him. We shared a good laugh. He called Francis's father and his dad was outraged at his son for being such a sheethead. The kid said he wanted 20 ounces because he hated cups. TLDR. Kid was a dipshit, told him to kiss my ass. My boss yells at his dad and the kid is grounded, never heard from again. I'm going to put a spin on this and tell you about an experience I had as a customer. Use this place quite frequently as I'm a absolute sheet cook, but anyway, I was down to my last 10 pounds straight out of the ATM, and I ordered. For some reason myself and my partner were downstairs babysitting or something I believe, and the delivery guy came and gave us the food, took the money, and all was well for about half an hour before the delivery guy came back knocking on the door. Me and my partner were just like, what the fuck, why is he back? We are nosy and look out the window first. Who doesn't? He comes all up in my face ranting about how I gave him a fake £10 note and how he either wanted a different note or the food back. 2 problems there, mate. 1. We ate the food. He waited half an hour. I'm not waiting half an hour extra when I'm goddamn hungry too. As I said before, that was my last £10. Obviously this led to a massive outbreak of arguing, but nothing I said seemed to make a difference. I'm pretty damn sure that £10 was not fake, as it was from an ATM. No, I'm not saying it is impossible, but there was literally nothing I could do. At one point I thought about offering to pay for the meals next time I ordered, but after how rude he was consistently being, I thought fuck you and didn't bother. Eventually the argument became racist. Him first, but I'm not a saint, nor proud tbh. I'm honestly not a racist, but this dude was the definition of an asshole. Eventually he called it a day and blacklisted us from the restaurant and apparently every taxi rank in my city. Neither of which happened. We avoided ordering from that place and have only recently, 2 years on, ordered food from there again. I have major respect for delivery drivers usually. My dad is one for a Chinese restaurant, and I would help him out occasionally, so I know what annoying customers are, but just the fact that this dude had the worst customer service ever really got to me. I think I even tipped him the first time also. Damn it. Point on a side note. The guys/girls from Pizza Hut always make my day. Proper customer service right there. I used to be a driver, so our local shop closes at 10 every day. We used to stop taking delivery calls at 9:30. There was this one chick who used to always call 5 minutes or less before 9:30. Now, this happens and you get used to it, but that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was, when you got to her apartment, we couldn't go in the apartment, since it's locked for the public, no gate code or anything to call, and she never answered her calls, even if they called from the store. So you can imagine waiting outside past your regular hours, because some cunt felt like it. One day she calls in for delivery minutes before 9:30, and I answer the phone. I'm having a pretty bad day, so as I'm repeating her order towards the end of the call, I also say, oh, and by the way, our manager is pretty tired of you not answering your phone to take the driver's order, since that wastes the driver's time and managers have to pay them for overtime. Then after I say that, I can only assume it's silence from someone telling that cunt she's not entitled to everything for the first time, and I say, ma'am, do you understand? Do you still want to order? She then hangs up, and I tell my manager about that crazy chick wanting to order, is mad at us. Manager says forget it, and she calls back demanding to speak with manager. Manager only heard my side about her being crazy and doesn't take any of her shit and just hangs up on her and blacklists her TLDR. I lied to my manager about a chick who never answered the door/calls and how she's crazy. She calls back angry demanding to speak with manager and he doesn't take any of her shit. Where should I begin? Let's just say the first one that has earned a sign on every wall: do not deliver to 666 Devil's Lane. First, they gave us around 5 bad checks in a row. Called multiple times for deliveries in the same day. Even when they paid cash they were short. They were always wasted to the point they couldn't remember their phone number, which is how we look up addresses in our system. Another one was a lady that lived in a hotel who ordered every night a hamburger on a soft roll, served plain with raw onions and lettuce on the side in a different container, so it's not soggy with holes poked in the lid, so her fries will stay crispy with no salt on anything, and she couldn't read her card number right half of the time, and her 40-year-old son would answer the door in nothing but his underwear. Another lived in a hotel for 3 years and would spend half an hour chatting with the delivery drivers, which made them late to other deliveries. She would spend 15 minutes on the phone trying to figure out what she wanted, claimed that she had a secret boyfriend in the CIA and people were out there trying to kill her, and she called and complained every time. And the one time she called during the day, our GM picked it up, and he got so fed up with her he blocked her. Then lastly, let's just call them the Germans. They order such specific things that they ask for the same person to order every time and order the same thing when they come to eat in and spend 20 minutes picking a table. That is not a seat yourself restaurant, and that is a very specific entree, down to how she wants it cooked, with a salad with every topping on the side with 3 sides on Caesar Parmesan. And some other specific stuff, but it is so specific I'm just not going to say it for anonymity. I think I've been working with delivery calls for too long. One really memorable one for me was I delivered to a regular, lived in a low-income housing project, ordered all of the time as the shitty pizza place was a block away. Guy was always nice and friendly, family man, would tip a couple bucks as he knew the area was shady and most places wouldn't deliver there. One night he was having a poker game or small party because his friend recently got out of jail. That friend answered the door. Was a pretty noob driver at this point, and the guy wanted specific change, so I took out my wad of cash in front of me and was sorting through the 20s to find a 5 for him. Big mistake. Guy tried to snatch the wad out of my hand, but I instinctively gripped onto them all, and he didn't get any. This immediately pissed me off, so I went, hey, not cool man. You don't do that. His friend the owner of the house was like "Ah fuck," and came over right away to try to smooth things over like, "Hey man, really sorry, my friend is really drunk and just got out of jail. He doesn't know what he's doing." So I was okay with accepting this apology. Then the guy who tried to snatch said, "Hahaha, don't worry little man, if I wanted your money you'd be dead right now. Don't got my shiv with me though. Next time, haha." At this point the regular's face fell and he couldn't believe this sheet. Told the owner of the shop, "AMD, since I worked for a small courier company that handled delivery for 20 plus spots in the city." Told her as well. Blacklisted to all of those shops. Almost felt bad, but fuck that guy's friend, and I learned never to do that stupid thing on another delivery. I delivered food for 5 years at a local restaurant. My boss would blacklist people for the usual shit, bad checks, constant complaints, etc. She blacklisted one guy because he complained I shorted him on his change because he didn't know how to math. It was 10 cents, but she was in a bad mood that day. She blacklisted a different guy because he lived out in the middle of nowhere and would always try to get me and the one other female driver to come inside of his house. Like, was really creepily insistent. I don't know if he had a rap dungeon in his basement, but I wasn't willing to find out. He also never pulled that sheet on the male drivers, so I don't know. She blacklisted one guy because he would order really close to close and then would never answer the door. I assume he was passed out drunk. I didn't mind because he always ordered roasted chicken dinners and I got to take them home. For the first 2 years, we delivered bottled beer. A ton of high schoolers got their parents' houses blacklisted for trying to order a 6-pack and an order of mozzarella sticks. A few underage college students got their off-campus houses blacklisted for the same reason. We rarely had legit orders for beer and the license was a pain in the ass to maintain, so she eventually quit offering that service. I did like taking new moms their first postpartum beers at the local hospitals, but it was definitely better to lose that than get yelled at / threatened by underage people for asking for it. She blacklisted an address one time because the adult daughter of the house had charged $75 worth of stuff to her mom's credit card and then the mom did her charge back. I had delivered to that place 2 to 3 times a week. The mom's car was in the driveway on the day in question. She blacklisted a family for a first time complaint once. They ordered a couple of pizzas. I dropped it off. They called and said the toppings were wrong and one of the members of the household was allergic to onion. My boss said, "Well, maybe I should just give you a refund since onions kind of get everywhere on the prep table." The family insisted we send 2 fresh pizzas. I was instructed to get the incorrect pizzas back. When I got back to the store, my boss opened the boxes. They had eaten all of the cheese and toppings off the pizza. Another time at a different house, another driver got a little phone book in the box, but that address was on their last straw anyway. That's all I can think of right now. I know I'm late to the party, but hope somebody gets a laugh out of it. Also, sorry for format / spelling on mobile. Edit, spelling / grammar errors. Okay, done this a bit and have a couple of stories. Most are from Morristown, New Jersey. We definitely had places we did not deliver. The Hollow. Directly behind our store and very inhospitable to law-abiding types. Drivers punched through windows of their cars at stop signs. Not robbed, just tagged '. My personal favorite wasn't there, but was nearby. This poor signage, no streetlights, and an unfamiliarity with the area spurred me to buy a small spotlight to more easily read the house numbers. Going down one street one evening around 10-10:30 p.m. I'm trying to find a house, and it's a bit of a pain because they aren't in order, not uncommon in Jersey. So I go up and down the street a couple of times, figure out the house number, pull up and trot up the front steps to deliver the pie. Knock on the door, just as I realize that not just the outside of the house is dark, but there is not one light on at all. I've never been robbed, but it suddenly felt like a complete setup. So I'm thinking about heading back to the car to find a phone and call and make sure it's real. 80s, few cell phones, when I hear the door open. I turn to be nice and smile and charming to pump up the tip, and I see a long dark barrel slowly slide out of the darkness of the inside of the house, pointed right at my chest. I'm astonished I didn't drop the pie / piss myself. I think I managed hi, you order pizza, or something like that, and then the lights all flipped on, and the guy was like, you really shouldn't be pointing spotlights at people's houses around here, man. I actually thought that was a good enough tip, but he hooked me up too. I've seen all kinds of customers that were blacklisted for being scammers, using fraudulent credit cards or attempted robbery. There are two specific guests that stick out in my mind. Point the first is a guy who claimed that we put weed on top of our pasta and called 911 to come inspect his pasta. We generally sprinkle an oregano/seasoning blend on top of our pasta, and he swore up and down that it was weed. He did this several times, even asking for us not to put the weed on his pasta at one point. It got to be so bad that we had to stop taking his orders. The second guest's story is a little sadder. This guest was an elderly lady who lived in an assisted living complex. She had an issue with a driver who thought that she was being rude to him. The guest didn't have all of her marbles and started calling us, complaining that the driver was gossiping with other guests at the facility. She got belligerent with another driver when we tried to deliver an order to her. After that we had to stop sending orders to her. I think the worst part about talking to her was that at one point, while telling her that we wouldn't be able to deliver to her any longer, she started to cry and fell out of her bed. I tried asking if she was okay but wouldn't respond. So I called the facility and asked them to go and check on her. The lady later called back and cussed me out for getting help for her, almost as if she would have rather died on the floor than have me call for help. Those are two stories that stick with me, but I feel like I hear all kinds of crazy stories. I honestly never got introduced to a blacklist if we had one, but as a driver I did have to take calls. I did, however, deliver to a house that was outside of our delivery area once. There are 4 or 5 of the same pizza chain in this city, so they split the city into different delivery areas. This cuts down on competition between stores and long delivery times. Basically what happened was there is this one house that sits on a hill in front of an apartment complex. The house that called in an order was on the same street, but it was the same street on the other side of a mountain. My boss took the call and assumed it was the house in front of the apartments and sent me on my way. When this happened I did not have a smartphone. I was a broke college student with a cheap flip phone and no GPS. So I got to the house and the address was wrong. I ended up going through the whole apartment complex and still didn't find the building I was looking for. Since I could not find the address and saw it was higher than any address in the area, I called back to the store. I ask if we are supposed to deliver to this address, and my boss says yeah. I tell him I can't find it, so he asks me to look for a bit more. So then I get this idea to try to go behind the apartment complex. I see this sheety dirt road that goes up the hill and around the trees and figure I will give it a shot. I was driving a sheety old sedan that I'm incredibly surprised made the trip over that bumpy piece of sheet road. I finally make it to the top of the hill and see the road continues down the other side, so I follow it. Thankfully the road is a little better kept on this side and eventually becomes gravel and then paved. I ended up finding the house and deliver the pizza. At this point I'm fairly late, but we don't have a if it's late it's free policy. I get the payment, notice they didn't tip, and I shrug it off because it took so long to find the place. As I'm about to leave, this high school girl comes down from the house and gives me a $5 bill, so I ended up getting tipped anyway. Cool. I finally get back to the store and tell my boss the story, and he realizes, while I'm telling it, that this house is in the delivery area for a different store. I gave him the address for the house he thought he was sending me to in the hopes that it doesn't happen again. The funny thing is, if my boss hadn't have assumed that the house was in our delivery area, he could have input it into the computer and it would have told him it was outside our area. In fact, I'm almost sure he had to ignore the prompt about it being outside the area to even put the order in. Well, edit. Some words. I delivered for my pizza joint for about 2.5 years. Most people are talking about danger in this thread, and danger was the main reason I was given for my shop's blacked out space. I personally have never faced anything threats while working, but nevertheless I have a story of why I wouldn't deliver to our blackout. One Friday afternoon in the early spring we got a call. The caller gave his address inside our blackout. We are local, so the blackout wasn't some insurance rule. The shop had just had bad business in the past. Well, this caller, to me he just sounds like a guy sitting on his front porch enjoying spring and craving a pizza. The blackout area wasn't some hard inner city ghetto. It was just the least presentable area of our medium town. Mostly drug traffic. I ask my boss/owner if I can take the order. It was probably spring break, so I knew I wouldn't earn much that shift. Boss says okay. I take the order, our only order right then, and it comes out 10 minutes later. I'm in the car and driving maybe 8 blocks away. Well, I get to the house and can immediately tell no one is home. There is no car in the drive or the curb, no one around at all, and a broken security camera is hanging from the post. I ring the bell, wait, nothing. Knock, wait, nothing. I call the number back. Well, it turns out the caller wasn't using his own phone. He used someone else's phone who was at work. This someone else helpfully suggests that my caller is just down the block on the corner. That is a big alarm bell for delivery. You never just walk down that way, but it is still broad daylight, and I can see some middle-aged fellas burning wood on the corner, an empty lot. I ask the fellas, and they have no idea about any pizza or the caller. That's the story. I went back to the shop with no money, no tip, used/unsellable pizza, and egg on my face for thinking someone from the blackout would just be there and pay. There wasn't a big scary standoff, but stuff like that just kills business and your enthusiasm. Never took another order out of the kindness of my heart, even to other areas. When I was a delivery guy back in the day, we had to bang a guy who I delivered to. The first time I delivered to his place, he invited me in while he grabbed his cash. Nothing odd. We made small talk for a few minutes. Everything seemed standard. Point the next time I delivered to him, he didn't come to the door when I knocked. I tried calling his house and it just rang, and I could hear it. I ended up leaving, and he called me a few minutes later. He said he took allergy meds and passed out. Once again, he seemed normal. Later that night, after we closed, the phone rang at the restaurant and my boss answered it. Then he asked me if I left a watch at that address. I didn't even wear a watch, so I was starting to get a little suspicious. The next day I got a call from a blocked number. I picked up, and the voice said, "Hey, I'm horny," and they hung up. A few seconds later I got a call from the guy's phone number, but he hung up after one ring. I was already completely sketched out at this point and knew I'd never be going back to that house. Point about an hour later he did the exact same thing. Inappropriate call on a blocked number, followed by a one ring and hang up, so I'd know who called. So he faked passing out on allergy meds in hopes I'd call, and he'd get my number on caller ID. Point after this, I called the cops and told them the entire story. Apparently a third call would have qualified as actual harassment, but instead I just called the guy back, asked him what the hell he was doing, and rejected him after he said, "I thought you were sending me some signals." He promised that he would leave me alone after that, and I told him to never call our restaurant again. Point I told my boss and coworkers the whole story so they'd know to not send deliveries there, which also resulted in me getting lots of shit from everyone I worked with. They knew I'd be a good sport. We sure did. We had about 40 blackballed addresses and 4 city blocks that were off limits. Granted, it was a small town and most of the guys on that list just scammed the driver, but there's been some close calls and faked up shit go down. One of the drivers was a 70-year-old woman, and she got jumped at one of those addresses a few years ago. She's still worked there for 10 years going, and basically became a local celebrity because of how generous she is with the parmesan. There was one time where I delivered to a super sketchy house right on the edge of one of those off-limit blocks. A guy opens the door with what looks like a Glock in his hand. For some reason, I just locked up and stared at it like a dumbass and didn't attempt to get away or anything. Turns out, it was just an airsoft gun, and the order was for the guys living in a smaller house at the rear of the house. My stupid ass went back there, and thank God it turned out to be some jock from high school who recognized me. When I got back to my car and peeled out, I saw a little kid step out on the front porch and shoot that airsoft gun at a couple of birds on a telephone wire. I got back to the shop and immediately told the manager to blackball that place. Of course, she didn't, and I wound up delivering to the same place a few weeks later. This time, they answered stoned as fuck, paid, and left me be. No guns or anything. But I'm glad I didn't have to deliver there again. My first job was at a pizza place, and we had a guy who would fall dead asleep after placing his order, and when we'd arrive with his food, he wouldn't wake up to answer the door and pay. He did this every damn time, without fail. He ordered somewhat frequently, to point all the drivers would groan whenever they saw his name and address on the list of deliveries. Nobody wanted to take his order because they knew they'd just end up bringing it back to the store because the dude fell asleep. It'd usually be at least an hour before the guy would wake up and call the store, wondering where his pizza was, and he wouldn't even tip when we'd bring it to him for the second time. Contrary to popular belief, most delivery drivers live off tips just as much as wait staff. The job has quite a significant impact on your car too. Drivers remember how well houses tip point to top it off. He lived in a boony area at the far end of our delivery zone, so there was rarely any other deliveries that the driver could take with it. This meant you'd have one driver who'd have to drive all the way out to this guy's house just to turn around and come back with the pizza, while the other drivers get to split and take all the other deliveries. Those drivers made money, while the unlucky bastard stuck going to the sleeping man lost money on gas. You do not want to be around a pizza delivery driver who is stuck with a single delivery during a rush. Trust me. Eventually, we got fed up with his shit and told him he has to come pick up anything he orders. It took longer than you'd think it should for that to happen, though. Kinda late to the party, but never told people this story before, so why not? When I turned 16 I started working at a local delivery place in my town in the Netherlands, and after a few days an order showed up, and my colleagues started talking to each other about that house, and they told me that this was supposed to be a very nice lady that tipped well, and because I was new they would let me take this one. Naive 16-year-old me believed then and happily went there. When I got to the door, a very nice old lady in what probably would have been her 70s opened the door and asked me if I could come inside and put the pizza in the kitchen because it was too heavy for her. Why not? I followed her inside and put it on the kitchen counter. She thanked me, gave me a nice tip, and that was it, or so I thought. While showing me to the front door she suddenly asked me, "Do you like my house?" I answered her and told her sure, it's a nice house. She then asked me if I wanted a tour. I politely declined, but she wouldn't have it and opened a random door. "Look, this is my son's room." I told her it was nice and tried to leave, but she told me to look at the room. I didn't want to look at the room, and suddenly I started thinking there might be a reason my colleagues wanted me to go here so bad. I told her I had some more pizzas that were getting cold and that I had to go. I ignored everything she said and left. When I came back all my colleagues were waiting in suspense with wide grins on their faces asking me what happened. Apparently this old lady had tried to kiss every one of my colleagues that had previously been there. It was common knowledge not to go into that house. For a while we would have some more fun letting new employees go to this address, but after a while my boss put it on the no delivery list. I still wonder sometimes if any of my colleagues ever spend any time in that room. For our place, thankfully we don't get robberies or people faking with us, so there's really only a few ways to get banned. The quickest is to blatantly fuck us out of our money, that is bad checks that aren't paid. Can't order again until the bad check is paid in full. Credit card chargeback, ordering food and calling in to cancel it more than 5 to 10 minutes later. Basically, if the food is made and in the oven or pressure cooker, you're on the hook for it even if you cancel. If they call to order again they will have the cancelled order's total added to that total, but we'll make exceptions for valid emergencies of course, or not picking up your order or not being home for delivery. Second is to complain way too much. So thankful we're a locally owned place and not a chain, so we don't have go deal with habitual liars. We take pride in the quality of our food, which is why we destroy the Domino's and Pizza King in our town on business. And will rush to correct any mistakes by giving a credit or remaking it whatever the customer prefers. But if the same customer complains about the same incredibly similar sheet every time the owner drops the well, it seems that we just can't make the food to your liking. While I'm sorry that this is the case, it would be better for everyone if you ordered elsewhere. We are not fucking idiots, we can tell. When a customer is genuinely upset with what they conceive as poor service, and when they are just looking for a discount/free stuff. One lady was told on a crazy busy night that delivery would be an hour and 20 minutes. She accepted. At an hour 5, she calls to say it's been an hour and a half. I'm walking out the door, so I tell the phone worker to correct her that it's only been an hour 5 and to assure her it will arrive within the quoted time. I guess while I was gone she called again saying it's been an hour and 45. Lucky for her she got the pushover manager and he gave her $10 off. I didn't mind because she tipped me that 10. But I timed it and I got there at 1 hour and 15 minutes, 5 short of the time we told her. I guess she called again after, complaining it took nearly 2 hours, wanting more money back. They said no. She tried to call back the next day and talk to the other manager who is also the owner. She told him it took almost 3 hours. Haha. He called her out because we have computers that log caller ID and I had already told him about the ordeal. She says well I need that money. And he responded maybe you shouldn't have spent it on pizza then and tried to lie about service to get it back. We'll appreciate you taking your business elsewhere in the future, to which of course she responded with class. Wait, no, she cursed and whined like the trailer trash she is. Finally, just be a rude dick overall. Cuss at the kids on the phone, mostly high schoolers, blatantly lie to us, threaten us, treat us like shit. Not only will we bang your ass, but we'll enjoy every second of you getting even more angry about it, knowing we never have to put up with your shit again, haha. My ex worked at a pizza place in Toledo. Some of the neighborhoods he would deliver to were pretty rough. One night he came home early and his face was all sorts of faked up. Turns out, a couple basically took him hostage because he didn't have the jingle change to give the back. They pulled a gun out over 34 cents and wouldn't let him leave until they got their change. He's stubborn and thinks he's a badass, so instead of just giving them $1, once the gun was pulled, he waited until he got the sheet beat out of him to round up. Needless to say, he started carrying jingle, but that house got banned. He would always carry a bat in the car with him, and I would always ask what he intended to do with that bat when someone was robbing him outside of his car. Not like he can walk up with pizza and a bat. Slightly unrelated, but still funny in a not so funny way. I work at a wing place, and on Tuesdays we have a special on the wings. At the time, it was $4 for 10 wings. I had a table eat his whole plate, then complain. I thought he was joking. Haha, it was terrible. People think they're funny. Nope. So I got him 10 more wings, just because it wasn't worth the fight. Then he did it again. So I got my manager and explained what happened. She's like 4 feet 10 and tiny, and this guy was probably 6 feet 5 and at least 300 pounds. He stood up and started screaming at her and said something along the lines of, if you were a good Christian woman, you would get me more free wings. And she stood straight up, looked him in the eye, and said, I'm Jewish. We ended up having to call the cops to make him pay his bill. Edit. Spelling. Used to sling pies for a franchise in the New Orleans area. We had very few areas we wouldn't go to, but those areas were generally referred to as the places only Domino's will go, cause the cops refused to. And we weren't Doms. One such place was Shrewsbury. It was one of those lovely areas where simply being there could get you shot at if you were an outsider. It was on our holy yes, don't go there in Big Red X marks list. If people asked why we don't go there, our excuses were generally either that it was too far away, that we don't go to that area after dark, lots of no-tell motels, which was 100% true, or if we just didn't want to deal with it, we just said, dude, Shrewsbury, sorry, man, just call Doms, they'll deliver to you. One day, though, a moderately lucrative order came up for there. It was daytime, and one of our greedier snake drivers volunteered to take it. In his delivery car, with the store sign lit up on top. I guess he figured he'd be able to sell some dime bags, or whatever, I dunno. Long story short, he came back alive and unhurt, having been persuaded to just hand over the pizzas and his cash on hand, for free, and had been hurried along his way with the encouragement of some hot flying lead. Fast forward 10 years or so, the restaurant location has now been bought out, so it moved to a new location, across the street from Shrewsbury's entrance, in the red light district. No real excuse to keep drivers from going there anymore. It's almost as if the franchise don't really care about driver safety. This is kind of a reversal story of the hilarious horror stories I've read here. Anyways, I worked at a Papa John's about 4 years ago as a driver. Absolutely loved it. There was this one lady who had been on the list due to her inability to understand that our store did not deliver to her house. No problems, just out of our area. One night she calls in from the same number as usual. I pick up and answer as usual, knowing where this is going to lead. But this time she was in tears, many drunk tears. I've called all 4 places and no one delivers to me, was the first thing I hear in the most sobbing voice. The lady seemed really nice and she was at a hotel that was only a block outside of our range. Spent roughly 15 minutes on the phone just trying to understand what she wanted and where she was at. I asked the manager if I could just take it to her cause I needed the, very hopefully, tip. Took the pizza and showed up to the hotel. Not 10 steps in the door and I see a pissed-drunk wedding militia plowing through the hallway. As soon as one saw me, the whole pack flocked and started screaming, "Pizza guy, who's the pizza for?" I told them for a lady Tammy. Their response was, "Wait, drunk Tammy? She just got married." Being the social bastard I engaged and said, "Well, show me where the lovely lady is." Sure enough, I had a whole clan of tuxedos and dresses following me. I felt like a king. We get up to the top floor after waiting on 2 loads of people wanting to surprise her. So I knock on the door. No answer. Everyone's lost. Waited 2 minutes. A guy answers the door with a very stern and unhappy look. He stares at me for a second and says, "Wrong room." Gave him the name and the immediate response was, "God damn it, again. I'll be right back." As he walks away, I noticed a white dress on the ground, then a pack of Sharpies sprawled across the carpet, then a child wandering the room laughing. Before the door shuts, at least 20 of these whiskey-ridden people went in, and all hell breaks loose. There's a lady passed out on the load to the ground hotel table in the living room. This brave child has a masterpiece all over this lady's back, forehead, legs and all. She looked like she went to a paint party. The guy comes back, apologizes for the wild behavior, drops a decent $10 tip on the receipt, grabs the pizza, and mopes back inside. One guy pops back out, says thanks for not being a dick, and gives me a business card. Wound up working for him for 6 months till I moved states. For being on a 1 AM delivery, which we delivered till 2 on weekends, only took 25 minutes including drive. For the time taken, she was put on the ban list cause I tried to help a drunken tragedy get some delicious pizza. At the place I worked at, we seemed to have our personal no delivery lists, since the managers did not keep track. Instead, delivery drivers could opt out of delivering a certain order, as long as there is a reason. We could also deny orders in non-residential areas at night for safety reasons. Some females didn't deliver to shady apartments at night. I carried a large knife for this scenario, never had to use it. I personally had a no delivery list including an apartment at the border of our delivery zone that I could never find a physical address for even with GPS, as well as a house of an abusive police officer who threatened me, then requested full change back, and gave no tip, and the house of a prank caller who would order pizzas from 3 to 5 different places and always claim they didn't order. I didn't order from you guys. I ordered from using gas for no tip and no reimbursement, because no order was completed, was a very good reason for me to never deliver to this house. He was also like 12. In that scenario, managers would either call the customer or just assign it to another delivery person, to find out the hard way why it was denied by the first guy. We had prank calls / fake orders at least once a month, and usually in the morning shift. Unfortunately, there was no real way for the managers to reimburse the drivers their lost 25 cents. 2012, when the delivery goes bad. I knew a few other drivers who had much larger lists and could call out a prank order just by hearing the exact address and or customer name. I actually ordered my employee discount pizzas or my employee meal under the name Who Jas for sheets and giggles. My GM was not amused. The store didn't have any banned addresses or people when I worked for Domino's in the late 80s, but I had a couple people I refused to deliver to. Gail Cadlett, WVU's basketball coach, had a weekly radio show and our sheetbag district manager decided we would send them free pizzas every week if Catlett ordered. The first time and only time I delivered to the radio show they didn't tip me. I know the store may have gotten a small free ad when Catlett would say our Domino's pizza is here on the show. But a millionaire wasting my time and gas then not even tipping even $1 set wrong with me. I would deliver to Catlett at his home because he was a paying customer, but even then he was a total dickbag. Catlett would write a check for the exact amount of the pizza and not tip at all. His house was only about 2 blocks from the store, so it was negligible time and gas wise to deliver to him. The district manager also made a private deal with one of Catlett's star players, but didn't tell the store about it. The first time I delivered to the player, who lived pretty far from the store in a pain in the ass part of town, I handed the player the pizza, and he said thanks, and went to shut the door. I said, whoa, you haven't paid yet. He said I could have free pizza whenever I want. Let me call him and put you on. At this point I said, don't call, because I knew he wasn't lying. The district manager tried to ingratiate himself with the WVU players and coaches as often as he could. If a delivery came up for the player's address in the future, I would refuse to deliver to him. To the player's credit, he didn't really abuse it. He would only order one pizza and he didn't do it often. Former Domino's delivery guy and then store manager here. 2 things. First was a dude who would watch Born Everyone and would be masturbating with no window shades. When girls would deliver the pizza, you can see who checks out the pizza for delivery on Pizza Tracker. I went there myself one time after checking out a pizza to one of the girls because the guys never had a problem with him. Well, sure enough, he was doing his thing expecting, let's just call her Sally. I told him we wouldn't deliver to him again, and if he tried anything like that to one of them, I'd call the cops. After faking him up first, second was a dude who would always order a thin crust with a shot tons of toppings and order it medium done. He would always call and complain saying it wasn't cooled enough. I told him after the 5th time that it just doesn't cook properly enough like that, and we wouldn't deliver, and if he wanted to come down to the store, sign a waiver of voluntary employment, I would give him a shirt, a hat, and have him make the pizza he liked the way he wanted, and make a pizza the way he liked the way I wanted to cook it. He accepted and came down and cooked both pizzas and apologized and said we were right and that I was a cool dude for hooking him up with a t-shirt and a hat. He also said he would accept pizza in pay as a return for his service. Yep, between there and Hollywood Video had a lot of cookie customers, but it sure had introduced me to dealing with a variety of people in the public as opposed to crunching numbers in a lone office. I liked those 2 jobs. I got a better job now, but I really enjoyed working at the video store the most. In a hoe. I'm drunk and rambling. Back to Redditing. I used to work for a middle-class, mostly white neighborhood Domino's. We had one group of apartments that everyone called the ghetto, which was kind of a joke, but mostly not. We wouldn't take orders after dark, and if it was a new name/number/address, we usually required they paid by card before we left the store, and would always call before leaving to make sure it was a legit number. I remember I went there one time, right during the part of time where we shouldn't have taken the order, but the manager did anyways, cause fuck it. He's not the driver, right? When I pull in, I see a group of about 15 to 20 teenage kids who immediately see me and scream pizza guy and rush my car. It felt like a scene out of a zombie flick where they notice they're human and you know shit's about to get messy. They were pounding on my windows like the kids in Mighty Ducks when they met their new coach, but these kids were not nearly as friendly. I threw that sheet in reverse so fast, James Bond turned miles out of there and never went back. Pretty mild, honestly. Here's the kicker though. A few weeks later, guy from my store takes another order he probably shouldn't have. Gets knocked out from a blow to the back of the head, robbed and left unconscious. A few months later, the cops busted a huge drug/gun ring out of those same apartments. Back in the 90s, I worked the phone line and dispatch for a courier company. First band customer was a guy starting a catering service. Called us the day of an event with about an hour lead time on a Friday at 4:30-5ish in the afternoon, and then was furious and making threats and came out to the office because the food was delivered later than he'd expected. Place got locked down. The manager meeting him at the door is 6 feet 8 inches and massively built and in great shape. He was a lot more submissive to him than the women answering phones. And he got "Nope, we're not taking any more work from you. Good luck finding another career that will take your BS. Law." Offices were also pretty horrible at calling at 4:30 to 4:45 and expecting delivery from the outer burbs to the downtown courthouse before it closed. Have the driver speed. If they get a ticket, I'll pay for it. Hell no. One of the law offices / real estate development guys, I don't remember which, may have been a bit of both, pulled the last minute on Friday calls. We ran the 24th of July 365, but the place's things were going closed at 5. All projects needed to be in before a deadline, and he pulls the "Do you know who I am?" and the "What do you mean you can't Google me?" Hello, this is a workplace. We don't necessarily have unlimited net access. And within a week there was a huge newspaper story about how he was a fraud. His business was fraudulent. The huge palatial house he was building by the lake was defrauding the people building it for him, etc. He was headed to prison pretty quickly after that. We didn't have to ban him. Long-time delivery man 4 years. First off, we had the usual who would swear they'd tip next time. Or we're on a fixed income. Then why are you ordering round table pizza? So when I made their pizza, I used just enough toppings to barely cover the pizza. Then we had the guy who demanded a 20% discount every time because he'd ordered so much food. Dumbers usually ordered a take and bake, so he didn't have to tip, pick up only. Then we had the kids. Well, I'm kind of an asshole, so what I would do is ask the kids if their parents were home. They'd say no, or they're sleeping. So I'd say, well, if you're old enough your tip will probably reflect it. If they didn't tip me, the next time I went I'd tell them they had to be 18 and that I couldn't sell them the pizza. Schwing. Free pizza. Then you have the douchebags. The ones that are never happy. I'd kill those bastards with kindness and borderline sarcasm, so they'd get more annoyed. My manager loved me and would usually laugh when I told them about the cheap bastard trying to scam us. If they said they wanted a discount, I'd refer them to ordering online. Our online system didn't work, or clip some coupons, or I'd offer them 2 extra packets of Parmesan cheese. I would only give them 2 per pizza as per company policy if they were douchey. Now the real idiots were the ones who were rude to the people who took their order on the phone. Unfortunately guys, I saw a lot of gross topping put on pizzas. Sorry for the long response. I have years of stories. Also, that store was fully haunted. My experiences were never as good or bad as these. I worked at a city walk for a summer in college. I probably worked for a month before I went back to school. Made some decent tips. We had one Brazilian guy that was a driver that was a total asshole to the other staff, mostly jokingly, but also quite rude. Apparently one time he made a delivery and a guy asked if he would come back after his shift and have sex with his wife. He went back and did it. We had one guy who would be so incredibly high every time he ordered. He would always get the same thing and usually give a decent tip, but he was very business like. When you showed up, he'd hand you the money and you give him the food. No words exchanged. The best part was there was a strip club in the delivery area and they would often make orders, so the girls who took and prepped the orders would use the code pages on it and hold them for me, especially if I was on the same shift as the Brazilian guy, mostly because I would drop a few dollars into their tip can at the end of the night. The club didn't tip particularly well, but I would always get some free entry passes when I delivered. They were nice. Speaking of tipping, I had a delivery to a hotel to a big family that were partying on the roof that totaled 100.98. When I walked up I told them the total was 100.98 and I had 2 big bags of food. Immediately 2 big guys swarm me, take the bags, and shove $200 in my pocket. One of them looks at me and says, "We good?" I pull out the money and say yay, I guess, and he leaves. One of 2 things happened there. He was trying to stiff me with a $2 tip on what he thought was a $200 order. He was tipping me $100. He didn't call back to ask me to bring back change, and I told the manager as soon as I got in, and they were all cool about it. They agreed the entire transaction was kind of rude as they didn't even try to hand the money to me directly. They were probably trying to stiff me a tip. Not a pizza place, but my college apartment is blacklisted from all 3 of the freaky fast delivery sandwich places in town. One day I had some friends over to study for the next day's exam. We decided that just having something delivered was easier than going and getting something because it was a freakishly cold day in November here. We are college nerds, so we ordered it via an app and the shop is about 5 blocks away from my apartment. Well, 30 minutes had passed, we almost forgot about it. There was 5 of us, so we thought it could be any time. Then an hour passed. Finally I called, because Freaky Fast wasn't here after an hour. I spoke with one of the employees, kindly, and asked if my order was received and what the eater was, because it had not arrived yet. The girl told me that it was delivered 45 minutes ago. One of my friends looked out on my doorstep and sure enough the bag was sitting there. I told the lady on the phone that the bag was sitting outside and she said she would talk to her driver because she's a new driver. She just happened to be walking through the door as we were on the phone. She told me her name was really familiar, but college town and pretty popular girl's name I didn't think anything of it. Then the woman, still on the phone, I could overhear them talking. Then she came back on the line and said my driver is not allowed to deliver to that address legally, but left the bag because she was the only one delivering at the time. I asked what the hell that meant, and I heard her ask and came back with, because you have a restraining order against my driver. I laughed out loud. A month or so later, I figured it couldn't happen again. Sure enough I found out that my address was blacklisted when they called back and said they were not only not able to deliver, they couldn't even make the sandwich and I would have to go to the other shop on the other side of town. Safe to say that I ordered a pizza instead. I used to work in a Chinese and our most memorable customer who ended up no delivery as this couple phoned up and ordered on a busy Friday or Saturday night, placed their order, and were told it was a 1-hour delivery wait point. Phoned 5 minutes later and asked to add poppadoms to their order. Argued with me when I told them poppadoms were Indian. Phoned again to ask if we could order them some poppadoms from a nearby Indian and collect and deliver for them. Answer was no. Phoned again to ask if they could add naan bread to their order. I explained again that naan was Indian and no, we couldn't possibly get them naan bread. Phoned again to ask if we could get them some regular bread. No. Phoned again to say you told us our order would be an hour, it's been 45 minutes. Where is our food? 15 minutes away. Phoned again to say their chicken chow mein had no chicken in it. Virtually impossible, all food was made to order. We agreed to replace, but as they had been so complicated and not wanting them to have free food, we told them we would replace but would need the old chow mein back. They said that was fine. Delivery driver goes to their door to swap the chow mein and they tried to take the new meal without returning the old meal. Driver refuses to hand it over without the old chow mein. Customer goes into their house and driver can hear plates clattering. Customer returns with almost empty chicken chow mein box, throws it at the driver and grabs the driver's shirt. After a scuffle, the driver threw the chow mein into their house and said, "Don't you daring us ever again." He returned with an almost empty chicken chow mein carton that supposedly had no chicken in it. Those 5 forkfuls had about 8 bits of chicken in. They then rang to ask for free Coke. I actually remember this pretty well. Had to recount it enough times to the cops that it's pretty well burned into my brain. My sister worked as a driver for Pizza Hut early last year. Went on a delivery run with her one evening because I was walking past as she came out of the shop and figured, hey, why not? Did a couple of deliveries, no worries. Then she had one in the seedy part of town. Ever seen the TV show Houses? Think that, except with more abos anyway. She went up to this house, which looked exactly the way you'd expect it to. 20 feral kids of both white and aboriginal ancestry racing around the yard/street, broken scooters/skateboards/push bikes/whatever everywhere. Basically the Australian equivalent of the ghetto. She knocked. Door was opened by your stereotypical skeletally thin toothless crackhead household type, who proceeded to snatch the pizza off her and slam the door in her face. I'd gotten out of the car and started heading over there at this point. My sister's white, pretty, 5'7" and 50 kilograms, wringing wet. Not exactly the safest combination in this neighborhood. I figured that having a 6'5", 100 kilograms bearded guy at her back wearing a scowl would make it less likely that she'd be wrapped, bashed or both. She knocked again and called out that the pizza hadn't been paid for and she'd need the $14.95. Crackhead rips the door open and screams something along the lines of "I'm not paying ya anything, ya white slutch dog," and punches her in the face. She's fallen back down the stairs and landed on her but on the front path, just missed cracking her head on the concrete as she's gone over. Crackheads followed her down the stairs screaming about white mutts or some other racist bullshit. Honestly, I wasn't really paying attention at this point as I'd seen red and launched the fence the second he hit her. He went to kick her, so I shoved him off and smashed her right into his face. He hit the dirt. I helped my sister up and we ran back to her car and booked it out of their that whole area is now a do not deliver zone, and she quit the next day. Cops ended up charging crackhead with assault and a whole bundle of drug related stuff. I got a handshake and congratulations for being an awesome brother. TLDR. Went with my sister on a delivery run just because ice raging crackhead tries to beat on her. I knocked ice raging crackhead the fuck out. I think there was more than one, but there's one that I specifically remember because I was the last person to deliver to her. She was a terrible old woman. A borderline hoarder. Her house smelled like piss and shit constantly. She also never tipped more than like $0.25. It was terrible. Getting that delivery was the worst point. It all started when she kept writing checks to us. She didn't know how much money she had, not much, so her checks almost always bounced. So we told her daughter that we won't take checks from her anymore, but she kept writing checks every time. Without fail. One day, she called and ordered food. My boss, the owner, wasn't in a particularly good mood that day. He was the type of guy that would tell you to fuck off, go fuck yourself, whatever. He had no filter. She ordered some crap and a salad, and I asked her twice to confirm what kind of dressing she wanted. I was the one unfortunate enough to get the delivery to her house. Of course, she wrote a check. Great. I got a nice $0 tip out of it. Even more great. I didn't really care. Her house was right nearby, so I didn't lose any money, maybe a couple hours of my life from breathing in the piss air. But then, the straw that broke the camel's back. She called and complained about some of the food being wrong. It wasn't wrong. The whole thing was right. I know because I confirmed her order multiple times. My boss was the one to take the call, so I knew from the start that this would not end well for her, and it didn't. Boy, did he give her an earful. He aired his grievances with her about every interaction they ever had since he opened in the 90s and ended with a nice "fuck you, don't ever call here again." Her daughter came by later and begged us to let her get food from us again. She even offered to order it and pick it up herself. She wasn't granted that luxury. That old beach never ate Jack and Tony's pizza again. I was a delivery driver at Jimmy John's for about a year in college. On the very edge of our delivery zone, there was this oddly placed gated community full of trailer homes. This was really odd, since we were in a decent area in a largish city. I would deliver there relatively often, usually to what appeared to be the community manager's trailer. One day we get a call from a different house. The guy taking the order told me the woman sounded strange, but this wasn't uncommon, so I didn't think much about it and left. When I pull up to the trailer, I immediately see a large, mentally handicapped 60-ish-year-old woman waving vigorously at me from the trailer porch. As I approach to exchange the food, her son emerges from the trailer. This is where it gets really weird. He was around 25, had a bald head, and a full face of middle school girl makeup on. Blue eyeliner, orange lips, the whole shebang. He was shirtless, and wearing only a pair of homemade Hello Kitty pajama pant cutoffs. It was creepy, but nothing had been done yet, so I went on with my job and tried to receive payment for the food. The woman looks confused and doesn't appear to understand money very well. The son tries to help her, but realizes they haven't counted out enough quarters and dimes to pay me with change, FML. They say they need to go inside and find more money and tell me to come inside. I say no and wait on the porch with the door ajar. From inside I see the son laying on the couch staring at me intensely while his mom tried to find more change. I try to avoid eye contact, but then I see him begin to reach down his pants. At that point I just set the food on the porch and left with what change they had given me. The extra $2 was worth leaving. I told my manager about the strange occurrence and he agreed to blacklist that trailer in particular. Let me preface this by saying this was years ago, and I'm not proud of it whatsoever. I had a few houses that never tipped, and I had to deliver to all the time. I knew that I couldn't refuse to take the order, or try to make my manager refuse service. Most of the time I didn't know the place by the address, only when I showed up to the door. If I was having a bad night, or had a overly rude customer, I would save the location on the GPS. Late in the night I would return either alone, or with a friend, to get back at them. I slashed a couple tires of a Mercedes that a doctor owned. These people were exceptionally wealthy and some of the worst people I've ever come into contact with. I spray painted cheetah in bright orange on a black Lexus, and more harmful stuff. Once there was a pickup truck that had the windows down, so I drove to a Walmart 20 minutes away to buy eggs, and emptied 2 cartons of sticky yolks all over the interior. One of the more interesting ones, I think, was this family that had a pool buddy of mine, and I bought 25 liters of various kinds of soda and poured all of them into the water. I don't know if it actually did any damage or not, but the 2 bags of their own garbage were thrown in for good measure. Like I said, I don't find it funny anymore that I did those things, but the people all deserved it at the time, or at least I thought. I was never caught and no one ever brought it up. Even so, I don't recommend that behavior. At the same time, giving a tip to someone that handles your food or delivers where you live is a very good idea. He or she is trying to make a living too.